Welcome to Midnight Lullaby, a place where every shadow tells a story and help you get into sleep today. So before that, like the video and subscribe the channel. Also, where are you from and what time are you watching? Now, let the darkness cradle you as the tale begins. The zipper of my sleeping bag whispers against the nylon as I settle in for the night. Outside my tent, the forest breathes its ancient rhythm, wind through pine needles, the distant hoot of an owl, the soft crackle of our dying campfire. These sounds have become my lullaby over the past 3 nights, a symphony of wilderness that should feel comforting by now. But tonight, something feels different. My name is David, and I'm here with my 3 closest friends from college: Sarah, Mike, and Jenny. We do this every summer, this pilgrimage to the Whispering Pines campground, deep in the Cascade Mountains, where cell phone towers can't reach and the only light comes from stars and flames. It's our ritual, our way of remembering who we were before mortgages and meetings consumed our lives. The tent fabric rustles softly around me, a cocoon of orange nylon that glows faintly from the moonlight filtering through the trees. I can hear Sarah's gentle snoring from the tent beside mine, a soft, rhythmic sound that's become as familiar as my own heartbeat over the years. Inhale, soft whistle. Exhale, pause. Inhale, soft whistle. Exhale, pause. Mike and Jenny share the larger tent on the other side of our small clearing. Earlier, around the fire, Mike had been telling his usual ghost stories, tales of hikers who disappeared, of voices that call from the darkness, of things that live in the spaces between trees. Jenny had laughed and thrown pine cones at him, but I noticed how her eyes kept darting toward the tree line, how she moved her chair closer to the fire's protective circle of light. The campfire has burned down to embers now. Through my tent's mesh window, I can see the soft orange glow pulsing like a sleeping heart. Pop, crackle, whisper. The sounds of wood transforming into ash, of heat dissipating into the cool mountain air. The scent of wood smoke drifts through the fabric, pine and birch, and something deeper, more primal. The smell of humanity's oldest comfort. I close my eyes and let the forest sounds wash over me. Somewhere in the distance, a branch creaks under the weight of wind, or perhaps some nocturnal creature making its way through the canopy. The sound is rhythmic, almost musical creak. Pause, creak, pause, like a rocking chair on an old porch, keeping time with memories. David. My eyes snap open. The voice came from outside my tent, soft and familiar. Sarah's voice, but not quite right. Too clear. Too close. Sarah's tent is 20 feet away, and her snoring continues its gentle rhythm unchanged. I lie still, listening. The forest has grown quieter, as if holding its breath. Even the wind has stilled, leaving only the distant creak of that swaying branch and the whisper of cooling embers. David, can you come out here? Sarah's voice again, but now I'm certain it's not coming from her tent. The sound originates from somewhere beyond our clearing, deeper in the trees, where the moonlight doesn't penetrate. The tone is perfect, Sarah's slight Midwest accent. The way she drops the D sound at the end of my name, making it Davy, the way she has since freshman year. But Sarah is asleep. I can hear her breathing, can see the gentle rise and fall of her tent walls as she shifts in her dreams. The real Sarah, the Sarah I've known for 15 years, lies safe in her cocoon of nylon and down filling. David, I need you to come out here, please. The voice is more insistent now, carrying a note of urgency that makes my chest tighten. It sounds exactly like Sarah when she's worried, when she needs help with something she can't handle alone. My body responds before my mind can catch up, muscles tensing, preparing to unzip my sleeping bag, to crawl out of my tent and find my friend in the darkness. But I force myself to remain still, because the real Sarah is still snoring softly 20 feet away, and because Mike's stories from earlier are echoing in my memory, tales of voices that lure campers into the woods, of things that learn to speak with borrowed tongues. The forest around me pulses with presence, not the peaceful presence of nature I've felt the past 3 nights, but something else, something aware, something watching. The darkness between the trees seems to shift and breathe, as if the shadows themselves are alive and curious about these 4 sleeping humans in their bright fabric shelters. David, are you awake? I think I heard something. Perfect. Sarah's voice is absolutely perfect. The slight tremor when she's scared. The way her voice rises on the last word when she's asking a question. If I didn't know better, if I couldn't hear her real breathing continuing its steady rhythm, I would believe it was really her standing out there in the darkness, needing my help. I reach for my phone to check the time, forgetting for a moment that there's no signal here, that the screen will show only the battery percentage, and a timestamp that means nothing in this place, where time moves differently. 2:47 a.m., the dead hours, when the veil between worlds grows thin and reality becomes negotiable. The voice calls again, but this time it's different. This time it's Mike. Hey David, you hearing this? Sarah's outside, man. She says she can't find her tent. Mike's voice carries the same perfect authenticity, his slight California drawl, the way he calls everyone man when he's relaxed. But Mike is in his tent with Jenny, and I would have heard the zipper if he'd crawled out. Those camping zippers are loud. If designed to wake you, if something tries to get in, or if something inside tries to get out. I prop myself up on my elbow and peer through the mesh window. The clearing looks exactly as it did when I fell asleep 3 tents, arranged in a triangle around the dying fire. The picnic table where we ate dinner, our food hanging in bare bags from the tall pine at the clearing's edge. Everything normal, everything as it should be, except for the shadows. The shadows seem deeper now, more textured. They move independently of the wind, flowing like dark water around the bases of trees, pooling in hollows and depressions in the forest floor. As I watch, one shadow detaches itself from a pine trunk and flows closer to our clearing, stopping just at the edge of the firelight's dying reach. David, please. I'm lost. I can't find my way back. Jenny's voice now, high and frightened. The voice she uses when she's genuinely scared, not the mock fear she employs during Mike's ghost stories. This is the voice I heard when she called me at 3 a.m. last year, crying because she thought someone was breaking into her apartment. Vulnerable, real, terrified. But Jenny is in the large tent with Mike. I can see the tent's silhouette against the starlight, can make out 2 sleeping forms through the thin fabric. Jenny is safe. Jenny is asleep. Jenny is not standing somewhere in the dark woods. lost and calling my name. The shadow at the clearing's edge ripples, and for a moment I think I see a shape within it, tall, humanoid, but wrong somehow. Too thin, too angular, like a person stretched on an invisible rack. The shape raises what might be an arm, and Jenny's voice calls out again. David? Mike. Sarah. Anyone. Please, I can't see the fire anymore. My heart hammers against my ribs. The voice is coming from the direction of that impossible shadow, but it sounds exactly like Jenny. Not an imitation or an echo, but Jenny herself, transported somehow into the darkness beyond our circle of tents and dying embers. I want to call out, to answer the voice, to offer help to whichever of my friends might actually be in trouble. But something deeper than logic holds me back. Some primitive understanding that recognizes predator behavior, the way certain creatures in nature use mimicry to hunt. The real Jenny shifts in her sleep, and I hear her mumble something incoherent. The sound comes clearly from her tent, warm and human, and utterly different from the voice calling from the shadows. That voice continues to plead, but now I notice subtle wrongness in it, the timing slightly off, like an actor who's learned their lines but hasn't quite mastered the rhythm of natural speech. David, I'm hurt. I think I twisted my ankle. Can you bring a flashlight? Sarah's voice again, but now I'm listening more carefully. The words are right, the tone is perfect, but there's something underneath, an echo, perhaps, or a hollowness, like sound bouncing around inside an empty cave. The voice of my friend, but filtered through something else, something that understands human speech, but doesn't quite understand human breath, human warmth, human imperfection. I reach slowly for my backpack, feeling for the flashlight I keep in the outer pocket. My fingers close around the cold metal cylinder, and I thumb the switch. Light floods my small tent, harsh and white, after the gentle orange glow of ember, light I've grown accustomed to. Through the tent wall, I see shadows recoil from the beam. Not natural shadows that simply disappear when light hits them, but active shadows that pull away like living things avoiding something painful. The movement is fluid, organic, like oil flowing uphill. Turn off the light, David. You're scaring me. Mike's voice this time, but edged with something that doesn't belong in any human throat, a harmonic undertone that makes my teeth ache. The real Mike would never ask me to turn off a light if someone was lost in the woods. The real Mike, despite his love of ghost stories, is practical above all else. Safety first, exploration second. I keep the light on and aim it toward the tree line, where the voices have been calling from. The beam penetrates, perhaps 30 feet into the forest, before being swallowed by the density of pine and fir. But in that cone of illumination I see them. Figures. 3 of them. Standing just at the edge of visibility, perfectly still like deer caught in headlights. But these are not deer. They have the general shape of humans' head, torso, arms, legs, but the proportions are wrong. Too tall, too thin, joints bending in directions that human joints don't bend. As I watch, frozen with a terror that feels both immediate and ancient, one of the figures opens what might be a mouth. Sarah's voice emerges. David, why won't you help me? I thought we were friends. The words carry perfectly across the space between us, but the figure's mouth doesn't move in sync with the sounds. The voice and the visual are disconnected. like a badly dubbed foreign film. The mouth opens and closes in a mechanical pattern that has nothing to do with the formation of consonants and vowels. I should wake my friends. I should shout, should unzip my tent and run to the others, should do something active and decisive and brave. But instead, I lie paralyzed, watching these impossible figures that wear familiar voices like stolen clothes. The second figure speaks with Mike's voice. Come on. Man, don't be weird about this. We just want to talk. The third uses Jenny's voice. David, I'm cold. The fire's gone out. Can you help us rebuild it? They know our names. They know our relationships, our ways of speaking, our individual fears and comforts. But they don't understand the deeper rhythms of friendship, the way real concern sounds different from performance, the way genuine fear carries weight that mimicry cannot replicate. My flashlight beam wavers as my hand begins to shake. The figures don't move closer, but they don't retreat either. They simply stand there in their impossible stillness, cycling through our voices like a radio scanning stations. Sarah asking for help, Mike making jokes that aren't quite funny, Jenny expressing worry that doesn't quite ring true. The real sounds of my sleeping friends continue unchanged. Sarah's gentle snoring, Mike's occasional sleep mumble, Jenny's soft breathing, a chorus of humanity that grounds me in what's actual, what's genuine, what belongs to the daylight world of friendship and shared memories. The dying fire pops, sending up a small shower of sparks that dance like fireflies before winking out. In the brief flare of light, I see that the figures have moved closer. Not walking, I would have seen that, but simply occupying a different position, as if they exist in multiple places simultaneously and choose which one to manifest in our reality. We know you're awake. Sarah's voice, but colder now, more commanding. We know you can see us. Stop pretending to sleep, man. Mike's voice, but without the warmth that makes it recognizably his. It's rude to ignore your friends. David, I'm scared. Please don't leave me out here alone. Jenny's voice, but the fear in it is wrong, too calculated, too precisely measured to achieve maximum emotional impact. I close my eyes and focus on the real sounds of the forest, the wind returning, rustling through the canopy above. A small animal, a mouse or shrew, scurrying through the underbrush. An owl calling from somewhere deeper in the woods, its voice wild and unimitated, belonging fully to itself. When I open my eyes again, the figures are gone. The forest looks normal, deep shadows and moonlight. The familiar architecture of trunk and branch that has sheltered countless camping trips. But I know they're still out there, just beyond the reach of my light, patient as predators have always been patient. The voices continue, but softer now, almost conversational. They cycle through variations of our names, our concerns, our ways of being in the world. But underneath the mimicry, I begin to detect something else, a loneliness so profound it makes my chest ache. These things, whatever they are trying so hard to connect, to understand, to be included in our circle of warmth and friendship. They don't understand that true connection can't be mimicked, can't be counterfeited with perfect vocal reproduction. They hear our words, but miss the love underneath them, the history that gives those words meaning, the thousand shared experiences that make a voice more than just sound waves, shaped by throat and tongue. David, Sarah's voice again, but quieter now, almost thoughtful. "Do you remember the first night we met? In the dorm. You were playing guitar, and I knocked on your door to complain about the noise. The memory is perfect, not just the facts, but the emotional texture of that moment. 18 years old, nervous about college, trying to impress people with my mediocre guitar skills. Sarah appearing in my doorway like a vision of confidence I wished I possessed. But Sarah is asleep in her tent, dreaming whatever dreams come to tired campers under mountain stars. The real Sarah, who knocked on my door 15 years ago, who became one of my dearest friends, who trusts me enough to sleep peacefully in the wilderness while I keep this vigil against the dark. The fire dies completely, plunging our clearing into moonlight and shadow. But I keep my flashlight trained on the tree line, a lighthouse beam holding back a tide of darkness and borrowed voices. My friends sleep on, safe in their ignorance of the things that call their names in the night. Hours pass, or perhaps minutes. Time moves strangely in this space between day and night, between the familiar and the impossible. The voices continue their patient chorus, cycling through our identities like a broken music box, playing fragments of human connection. Eventually, the eastern sky begins to lighten. Not sunrise yet, but the pre-dawn glow that promises morning, that reminds the darkness it cannot hold the world forever. The voices fade as the light grows, becoming whispers, then echoes, then finally silence. Sarah stretches and yawns in her tent, the real Sarah, warm and human and beautifully, impossibly alive. Soon she'll unzip her door and emerge to start the coffee, and we'll sit around the cold fire pit and talk about our dreams, and I'll decide whether to tell them about the voices in the dark, or keep this vigil as my own secret burden. The forest returns to its daytime, rhythms, birds calling, squirrels chattering, wind moving through leaves like nature's own breath. Normal sounds, honest sounds, sounds that belong to themselves and no one else. But as I finally allow myself to doze in the growing light, I wonder if the things in the woods will remember our voices too. If somewhere in the darkness beyond human understanding, they practice being us, learning our rhythms and tones, and the particular way we call each other's names. And I wonder if someday someone else will lie in a tent and hear my voice calling from the darkness, perfect and wrong, and desperately lonely, forever seeking connection in the only way it knows how. The forest keeps its secrets, and we keep ours. And the morning sun rises on another day in the wilderness, where things that should not be sometimes learn to speak with borrowed tongues. But that's a story for another campfire, another night, when the darkness grows brave enough to call our names again. Story 2. The fluorescent lights hum their familiar lullaby overhead, casting everything in that peculiar hospital glow that makes healthy people look sick and sick people look, well, worse. I've been walking these halls for 8 years now. 8 years of night shifts that blur together like watercolors in rain. But tonight, something feels different about the 5th floor. My sneakers make soft squeaking sounds against the polished linoleum as I make my rounds. Room 2031, Mrs. Chen, sleeping peacefully, her breathing steady and deep. Room 2033, Mr. Rodriguez, also asleep, the IV drip counting out time in slow, hypnotic drops. Room 235, empty, waiting for tomorrow's admission. And then room 237. I pause outside the door, clipboard clutched against my chest. The nameplate beside the door is blank, just a white rectangle waiting for a patient who isn't there. The room has been empty for 3 weeks now, ever since Mrs. Patterson was discharged. I watched her leave myself, helped her into the wheelchair, waved goodbye as her daughter wheeled her toward the elevator. So why is the call light blinking? The small red button above the door pulses like a mechanical heartbeat on, off. Each flash casts a brief crimson shadow across the hallway, and in that shadow, I think I see movement. But when the light fades, there's nothing there but empty corridor and the distant murmur of the nurses' station. I press my ear to the door, listening. Silence. Then, so faint I might be imagining it, the sound of shallow breathing. A soft, wet cough that seems to echo from inside the room. Hello. I call softly, not wanting to wake the other patients. There's someone in there. The call light stops blinking. The hallway falls into the familiar hush of a sleeping hospital, broken only by the distant ding of elevator doors and the whispered conversations of the night staff. But something in that silence feels expectant waiting. I check my watch, 20:17 a.m., the witching hour, the other nurses call it. The time when patients take turns for the worse, when families gather in hushed circles, when the boundary between sleep and waking becomes thin as tissue paper. My hands shake slightly as I reach for my master key. 8 years of night shifts, and I've never been nervous about entering an empty room. But as the key turns in the lock, I hear it again, that soft, persistent cough, like someone trying not to disturb the neighbors. The door swings open on darkness. I reach for the light switch, fingers fumbling against the wall, until I find the familiar plastic rectangle. The overhead fluorescents flicker to life, illuminating a room that should be empty. And it is empty. The bed is made with fresh linens, corners tucked with military precision. The monitoring equipment stands silent and unplugged. The small table beside the bed holds nothing but a water pitcher and an untouched cup. Everything is exactly as it should be in an unoccupied room. But the call light is on. Not just the one in the hallway. The one beside the bed is glowing too. Its red button pressed down as if by invisible fingers. I walk over to reset it, my footsteps echoing strangely in the small space. The sound bounces off the walls with a hollow quality that reminds me of walking through a cave. As I reach for the call button, I hear breathing that isn't mine. It's soft, labored, the kind of breathing that comes with effort. The rhythm is wrong, too fast, then too slow, then stopping altogether for heart, stopping moments before resuming. I freeze, hand extended toward the button, and listen. The breathing seems to move around the room, first from the bed, then from the corner near the window, then from somewhere behind me. I turn slowly, but there's nothing there. Just the empty room and the sound of someone who isn't there trying to breathe. Who's there? I whisper, though I already know there will be no answer. The call light blinks off, then on again. Off, on. The rhythm matches the breathing, and I realize with growing unease that it matches my heartbeat too. The room pulses with red light, and in each flash, shadows seem to move just beyond my peripheral vision. I should leave. Every instinct tells me to back out of the room. I close the door and pretend this isn't happening. But I've been a nurse for 8 years. I've seen people die, watched them struggle for breath, held their hands as they let go. If someone needs help, I can't just walk away. I'm here to help. I say to the empty room, tell me what you need. The breathing stops. The silence stretches, thick and heavy, pressing against my eardrums. Then, so quietly I almost miss it, a voice whispers from somewhere near the bed. I can't find my room. My skin prickles with goosebumps. The voice is thin, elderly, with the paper. Dry quality of someone who hasn't had water in too long. It sounds familiar, but I can't quite place it. Like a song you know you've heard, but can't remember where. What room are you looking for? I ask, moving closer to the bed. The mattress is pristine, but as I approach, I notice a slight depression in the center, as if someone has been lying there. I was in 237, the voice says, and now it seems to come from all around me. But I can't find it. The numbers keep changing. I feel the blood drain from my face. This is 237. You're in 237 right now. A sound that might be laughter, if laughter could be made of dust and regret. No. 237 is down the hall. Blue walls, yellow flowers. My daughter brought yellow flowers. But this is 237. I know it is. I've checked the room number 3 times. The plate beside the door clearly reads 237 in black numbers on white plastic. Unless I'm wrong. Unless the numbers have been changing when I'm not looking, rearranging themselves like letters in alphabet soup. I back toward the door, needing to check, needing to be sure. The nameplate still reads 237. But now the numbers seem to shift and blur when I look directly at them. Sometimes they're clear and solid. Sometimes they seem to be written in pencil, fading around the edges. The flowers. The voice says, closer now, right beside my ear. Where are the yellow flowers? I turn back to the room, and for just a moment, I see it. Yellow chrysanthemums in a clear vase on the bedside table. But when I blink, there's only the empty water pitcher. The flowers exist in the space between heartbeats, in the pause between breaths. Mrs. Patterson, I whisper. The call light begins to blink faster, more urgently. The breathing becomes more labored, more desperate. And now I remember Mrs. Patterson in room 237, 3 weeks ago. Her daughter brought yellow flowers every day. We moved her down the hall on her last night to room 241, where the family could have more privacy. But she died in 237. In her mind, she never left. You're not supposed to be here. I say gently, the way I would speak to a confused patient. You were discharged. Remember, your daughter came to get you. No. The voice is more insistent now, tinged with the fear of someone who is lost and alone. I live here. This is my room. The flowers due. Where are the flowers? The temperature in the room drops noticeably. My breath begins to mist in the sudden cold, and frost spreads across the window like fingerprints. The call light flashes faster now, almost strobing, and in each flash of red light, I catch glimpses of the room as it was a bed with rumpled sheets, yellow flowers on the table, a water glass half empty, and a shape beneath the blankets that rises and falls with labored breathing. I need to go home, the voice says, weaker now. My daughter is waiting. She's not waiting anymore. I whisper, you can go home now. You don't have to stay. The breathing slows, deepens. The call light's frantic blinking gradually returns to its steady pulse, then stops altogether. The cold lifts from the room like morning fog, and suddenly everything feels normal again. Just an empty room with clean sheets and no flowers. I walk to the window and look out at the parking lot below. Dawn is still hours away, but the sky seems a little lighter now, as if somewhere in the distance, the sun is beginning to remember its job. A lone car drives through the parking lot, headlights cutting through the darkness, carrying someone home. Behind me, the room is silent. No breathing, no whispers, no desperate pressing of call buttons. Just the familiar hum of fluorescent lights and the distant sounds of a hospital that never sleeps. But as I turn to leave, I notice something on the bedside table. Where the empty water pitcher stood, there's now a single yellow chrysanthemum. Its petals slightly wilted, but still beautiful. Real, solid, impossible. I pick it up, feeling the rough stem between my fingers, breathing in its faint, sweet scent. Then I walk to the nurse's station and place it in a small vase, the kind we use for single flowers that patients' families bring. The night supervisor, Carol, looks up from her charts.
"That's pretty,"
she says. "Where did it come from?" "Room 237, I say, not mentioning that the room is supposed to be empty. "From Mrs. Patterson." Carol frowns. Mrs. Patterson. But she was discharged weeks ago, to her daughter's house. I remember. I say quietly. But sometimes patients forget they're not supposed to be here anymore. The rest of my shift passes quietly. No more call lights from empty rooms. No more whispered voices in the darkness. Just the normal sounds of a hospital at night. Monitors beeping, IVs dripping, the soft conversations of patients who can't sleep. But as I prepare to leave at 7 a.m., I walk past room 237 one more time. The door is closed, the nameplate blank, and waiting for the next patient. The call light is dark, yet as I pass, I hear it a soft sigh, like someone settling into bed. The gentle rustle of sheets being pulled up to chin level. The quiet sound of someone finally, peacefully, going to sleep. I don't look back. Some things are better left undisturbed. Some patients need time to find their way home, even after they've already left. And sometimes, the best thing a nurse can do is simply witness their journey, hold space for their confusion, and help them remember that it's okay to let go. The elevator doors close behind me as I head home to my own bed, my own dreams. But part of me will always be walking those halls, checking on patients who may or may not be there, listening for call lights that blink in empty rooms, carrying yellow flowers from the spaces between what is and what was. Because that's what night shift nurses do. We tend to the living and the dying, the present and the past, the patients who need our help, and the ones who just need to remember. They don't have to stay anymore. The hospital sleeps fitfully around us, full of rooms where healing happens and memories linger, where call lights blink for reasons that can't be explained in medical textbooks, and where sometimes the most important thing we can do is simply listen to the breathing in empty rooms and remind the silence that it's okay to let go. Story 3. The floor buffer hums against the polished tiles, its circular motions hypnotic in the empty terminal. 3 a.m. is the quietest hour at Hartwell International. The last red, I departed 40 minutes ago, and the first morning flight won't board for another 3 hours. This is my domain now, these echoing corridors and vacant gate lounges where 1,000 stories play out every day. I've been cleaning this terminal for 6 years. 6 years of mopping up spilled coffee and forgotten tears, of emptying trash bins full of boarding pass stubs and crumpled tissues. I know every stain on every carpet, every scuff mark on every wall. I know which seats creak when you sit in them, which fluorescent bulbs flicker just before they burn out, and which corners hold shadows that seem deeper than they should be. But tonight, something feels different about Gate C14. I wheel my cart down the concourse, the squeak of one stubborn wheel echoing off the glass walls. Outside, the runway lights stretch into darkness like a constellation fallen to earth. The control tower blinks its red warning beacon in steady rhythm, a mechanical heartbeat keeping time with the night. Gate C14 should be empty. The last flight, a 2:15 a.m. departure to Portland, took off on schedule. I watched the cleaning crew from the airline finish their work, saw them pack up their supplies and head home. The gate area has been vacant for over an hour. So why does the air still smell like coffee and anxiety? I approach the seating area slowly, pushing my cart with deliberate care to minimize the noise. The terminal is never truly silent. There's always the hum of ventilation systems, the distant rumble of baggage conveyors, the occasional announcement echoing from some far corner. But here, at C14, the silence feels heavier, expectant. The seats are arranged in typical airport fashion. Rows of blue vinyl chairs, connected by metal frames, worn smooth by countless travelers. Most are empty, but as I move closer, I notice something odd. Seat 14B, third row from the gate podium, still bears the impression of someone who was sitting there. The vinyl is slightly compressed, forming the perfect outline of a human form. I reach out to touch the seat. It's warm. Not just warm, it's body temperature, as if someone stood up only moments ago. But I've been watching this gate for the last hour, cleaning the adjacent areas. No one has been here. The cleaning crew swept through, the gate agent locked up. The last passengers boarded their flight. The area has been empty. I press my palm against the vinyl, feeling the heat seep through my latex gloves. It's definitely warm, definitely shaped by recent occupation. But more than that, there's a peculiar impression left behind, not just physical, but somehow emotional. Sitting in that spot, I sense a deep weariness, the kind that comes from too many delayed flights and too many nights spent sleeping in airport chairs. Must be residual heat, I murmur to myself, but my voice sounds thin in the empty space. From the cleaning crew. But I know the cleaning crew finished over an hour ago, and this warmth feels too specific, too intentional. It's the exact temperature and shape of someone who sat here waiting, hoping, maybe crying a little, when their connecting flight was delayed again. I move to the next row, checking each seat methodically. Most are cool to the touch, their vinyl surfaces returning to room temperature as they should. But in seat 17F, I find another warm impression, and another in 12C. Random seats scattered throughout the gate area, each bearing the thermal signature of recent occupation. My cart wheels squeak as I navigate between the rows, checking each chair. The pattern makes no sense. If people had been sitting here recently, they would have been clustered together, or at least in logical groupings. These warm spots are scattered randomly, as if invisible passengers are still occupying the space, still waiting for flights that may have already departed. I try to rationalize it. The heating system, perhaps, creating warm spots where vents blow directly onto certain seats. But the air conditioning has been running all night, maintaining the terminal's constant chill. And these impressions are too precise, too human in their contours. In seat 9A, I find not just warmth, but something else, a slight depression in the armrest, where someone's elbow rested for hours. The vinyl bears the faint outline of a sleeve texture, as if pressed there by someone wearing corduroy or heavy cotton. But when I look closely, there's nothing visible, just the sensation of fabric that isn't there. Hello. I call softly into the empty gate area. Someone here. My voice echoes back to me, but there's something wrong with the echo. It sounds like it's bouncing off more surfaces than it should, as if the space is fuller than it appears, as if there are bodies in seats that I can't see, absorbing and reflecting sound in ways that don't match the visual emptiness. I sit down in seat 14B, the one that started this mystery. The warmth immediately surrounds me, seeping through my uniform and into my skin. But it's more than just temperature. It's like settling into someone else's experience. Suddenly, I feel bone, deep exhaustion, the kind that comes from traveling for 6 hours with 3 connections and a missed flight in Denver. I close my eyes, and for a moment, I can almost see her, a woman in her 50s, wearing a rumpled business suit and clutching a laptop bag that's seen better days. She's been traveling for 2 days, trying to get home to her daughter's wedding. Each delay, each missed connection, each rerouting chips away at her composure, until she's sitting here at 3 a.m., wondering if she'll make it at all. But when I open my eyes, I'm alone in the empty gate area. I stand quickly, disturbed by the vividness of the vision. 6 years of cleaning airports, and I've never experienced anything like this. I've found plenty of things left behind phones. Books, jewelry, once even a prosthetic leg. But I've never encountered the emotional residue of travelers, their hopes and fears somehow imprinted on the furniture. I move to seat 15F, the second warm impression. This time the experience is different. As I sit, I feel the restless energy of someone young, maybe early 20s. There's excitement mixed with terror. A first trip abroad, maybe, or moving to a new city where they don't know anyone. The person who sat here was tapping their foot constantly, checking their phone every 30 seconds, alternating between euphoria and panic. In 12C, I encounter grief. Deep, overwhelming sorrow that makes my chest tight and my eyes water. Someone sat here after saying goodbye forever, maybe traveling to or from a funeral. They cried quietly, trying not to disturb other passengers, dabbing at their eyes with tissues that went unused because the tears wouldn't come when expected. Each seat tells a story. Each warm impression holds the emotional weight of someone's journey. I begin to understand that I'm not just encountering residual heat. I'm touching the psychic imprints left by travelers who poured their hearts into these vinyl seats while waiting for flights that would change their lives. In seat 23D, I feel anticipation so intense it makes my hands shake. Someone sat here waiting to meet their long-distance partner for the first time. They rehearsed conversations, checked their appearance in their phone camera, and tried to calm their racing heart. The seat still vibrates with nervous energy. In seat 80B, there's the hollow ache of loneliness. Business travel? Probably someone who spends half their life in airports and hotel rooms. Who has forgotten what it feels like to sleep in their own bed? They sat here calculating how many days until they could go home, wondering if anyone would notice if they didn't come back. I realize I'm crying, not from any specific emotion, but from the overwhelming accumulation of human experience concentrated in this small space. All these people, all these stories, all these moments of transition and transformation. The airport isn't just a place where people wait for flights. It's a repository of human emotion, a crossroads where lives intersect for brief moments before scattering to the winds. But why can I feel them tonight? Why are these impressions still warm, still present, hours after the people have gone? I sit in the center of the gate area, surrounded by empty chairs that hold invisible passengers. The terminal hums around me with its mechanical lullaby, but underneath that sound, I hear something else. The soft rustle of clothing as someone shifts in their seat, the quiet tapping of fingers on armrests, the barely audible sound of someone crying, trying not to be noticed. I see you. I whisper to the empty space. I know you're here. The sounds grow clearer. I hear the rustle of newspapers, with the zip of luggage being opened and closed, the soft conversations of people trying not to disturb others. Gate C14 is full of travelers, even though I can't see them. They're still waiting, still hoping, still carrying their stories from one place to another. And suddenly I understand. These aren't ghosts in the traditional sense. They're echoes, emotional impressions, so strong that they've become temporarily real. The intensity of human experience at this crossroads, this liminal space between departure and arrival, has created a kind of psychic residue that lingers just beyond the edge of perception. The airport exists in a state of constant transition. People arrive carrying the emotional weight of their origins and depart bearing the hopes and fears of their destinations. That energy has to go somewhere, and sometimes, especially during the quiet hours, when the veil between worlds grows thin, it accumulates in the spaces where people wait. I stand and return to my cart, but I move differently now, more carefully, with respect for the invisible passengers who share this space with me. I clean around the warm seats, leaving them undisturbed for the travelers who still occupy them in some dimension I can't quite perceive. As I work, I listen to their stories. The businessman in 15C who's finally going home after missing his daughter's birthday. The college student in 20 who's flying to her grandmother's funeral. The young couple in 7D and 7E who saved for 2 years for their honeymoon trip to Ireland. All of them waiting, all of them hoping, all of them leaving pieces of themselves in these vinyl seats. By the time I finish cleaning the gate area, dawn is beginning to lighten the windows. The first morning flights will start boarding soon, bringing fresh passengers with new stories, new hopes, new fears. The cycle will begin again. But as the sun rises and the terminal begins to stir with the energy of a new day, the warm impressions start to fade. One by one, the invisible passengers seem to board their flights, carrying their emotional baggage to destinations unknown. The seats cool to room temperature, returning to their neutral state. By 6 a.m., Gate C14 looks like any other gate area. Empty chairs waiting for the next wave of travelers. But I know better now. I know that every seat holds stories, that every surface bears the invisible marks of human passage. The airport isn't just a building where people wait for flights. It's a living archive of human experience, a place where emotions crystallize and linger just beyond the edge of sight. I wheel my cart toward the next gate, leaving C14 to its quiet memories. But I carry something with me now, the understanding that cleaning this terminal is more than just maintaining surfaces and emptying trash. I'm the custodian of stories, the keeper of emotional echoes, the guardian of the spaces where people's lives intersect for brief, intense moments before scattering like dandelion seeds on the wind. Tonight, I'll return to these halls, and maybe I'll feel them again, the warm impressions left by travelers who've moved on, but somehow remain, still waiting in the spaces between departure and arrival, still hoping for safe passage to wherever they need to go. The terminal never really empties. It only appears to. And now that I know how to listen, I'll never clean these gates the same way again. Story 4. The neon sign outside flickers with dying electricity, casting intermittent shadows across the empty parking lot. Sunset Motel. It reads, though the sun set hours ago and won't rise again for another 6 hours. I've been working the night desk here for 4 months now, and I've learned to love the rhythm of these lonely hours. The hum of the ice machine, the distant whisper of highway traffic, the soft click of my keyboard as I update the guest registry. Most nights are quiet. A few long-haul truckers looking for a place to rest. Occasionally a traveling salesman or a family whose car broke down 20 miles outside of town. The Sunset Motel isn't the kind of place people choose. It's the kind of place they end up. But there's something about room 12 that doesn't make sense. Every night at 11:17 p.m., I hear footsteps on the metal stairs leading to the second floor. Always the same time, always the same measured pace. Step, pause. Step, pause, as if someone is carrying heavy luggage or fighting exhaustion with every movement. The footsteps stop directly outside room 12, and then I hear the distinctive sound of a key card sliding through the electronic lock. The first time it happened, I assumed I'd made a mistake with the bookings. Maybe someone had checked in earlier, and I'd forgotten to update the system. But when I pulled up the registry, room 12 showed as vacant. Had been vacant for 3 weeks, ever since Mr. Chen checked out after his business trip to the coast. I walked upstairs to investigate, my master key ready to check the room. But as I approached room 12, I could see light seeping from beneath the door. Not the harsh overhead fluorescent that comes with the rooms, but a softer, warmer glow like lamplight. And from inside, I could hear the sounds of occupancy water running in the bathroom, the creak of bed springs, the soft murmur of a television turned low. I knocked gently. "Excuse me, I'm from the front desk. There seems to be some confusion about your reservation." The sounds stopped immediately. The light beneath the door flickered and went out. When I used my master key to enter the room, it was empty and dark. The bed was made with the same cheap floral comforter we put on every bed. The bathroom was spotless, dry as a bone. The television was off, its screen reflecting my confused face in the dim light from the hallway. But the air still held the faint scent of someone's presence, soap, maybe, or cologne. Something human and warm in a room that felt cold and abandoned. That was 3 weeks ago. Since then, every night at exactly 11:17 p.m., I hear those same footsteps. Every night. The electronic lock beeps its acceptance of a keycard that doesn't exist in my system. Every night, room 12 becomes occupied by someone who was never there. Tonight, I've decided to watch more carefully. I position myself at the front desk, where I can see the stairs through the large window. The parking lot is empty, except for my old Honda and a semi-truck whose driver checked into room 6 around 10 o'clock. The driver, Bill, according to his registration, is probably already asleep, catching a few hours of rest before pushing on toward Denver. My computer screen glows in the darkened lobby, showing the familiar sight of our guest registry. 11 rooms occupied, 1 vacant. Room 12, as always, shows no current guest, no reservation, no payment method on file, just an empty entry in the system, waiting for someone who will never officially arrive. The clock on the wall ticks toward 11:17. I find myself holding my breath, though I've heard these footsteps dozens of times now. There's something about the routine that feels sacred, inviolable, like interrupting a prayer or disturbing a funeral. At exactly 11:17, they begin. Step, pause. Step, pause. Through the window, I watch a figure climb the metal stairs. But here's what makes my skin crawl. I can see the stairs moving under the weight of someone's feet, can hear the metal creak and flex, but I can't quite make out who's climbing them. It's like trying to focus on something in my peripheral vision. The harder I look directly, the less I can see. The figure reaches the second-floor walkway and moves toward room 12. I catch impressions rather than details. The suggestion of a suitcase dragging behind, the outline of someone bent with exhaustion, the shadow of a person who has been traveling for far too long. But when I try to focus on specifics, clothing, age, gender, the image slides away like water. The electronic lock beeps. The door opens and closes with a soft click that I hear clearly through the thin walls. And then, as always, the sounds of occupancy begin. Water running in the sink, the bed creaking as someone sits down heavily, the soft sound of a suitcase being unzipped, the television turning on, its volume kept respectfully low. All the normal sounds of someone settling in for the night. I pull up room 12 in the computer system. Still vacant. No charges. No guest name. No payment method. According to every official record, the room is empty. But I can hear someone moving around inside. This time, instead of investigating immediately, I decide to wait. Maybe if I give our mysterious guest time to settle in, I'll learn something more. I make coffee in the small pot behind the desk and settle in to listen. The sounds from room 12 follow a pattern. First, the bathroom routine, shower running for exactly 12 minutes, followed by the hair dryer for 3. Then the television, tuned to what sounds like a late night talk show. Voices rising and falling in the rhythm of practiced comedy. Occasionally, I hear the soft sound of laughter from inside the room, as if our guest is genuinely entertained. Around midnight, I hear the distinctive rustle of takeout containers. The smell of Chinese food drifts down to the lobby sweet and sour pork, fried rice, something with garlic that makes my stomach growl. But there was no delivery. I've been watching the parking lot all night, and no car has pulled in except Bill the trucker. I climb the stairs quietly, my footsteps muffled by the cheap carpeting. Outside room 12, I can smell the food clearly now, along with other scents of occupancy: soap, shampoo, the faint mustiness of clothes that have been in a suitcase too long. The television murmurs behind the door, and I can see the flickering light of changing channels beneath the door frame. I press my ear to the door and listen. Inside, someone is eating, the soft sounds of chopsticks against cardboard, the quiet satisfaction of someone enjoying a meal after a long day of travel. Occasionally, there's a sigh of contentment, or the rustle of paper napkins. "Excuse me," I call softly through the door. "I'm sorry to disturb you, but I don't show a reservation for this room. Could you help me understand the situation?" The eating sounds stop. The television goes silent. For a long moment, there's no sound at all from inside the room. Then, a voice, tired, perhaps a little sad, but not unfriendly. "I'm sorry. I know I should have checked in properly. It's just, I've been traveling for so long, and this room, it feels like home." The voice is hard to pin down. Sometimes it sounds like a man, sometimes a woman. The age shifts too, sometimes young and hopeful, sometimes worn down by years of disappointment. It's as if the voice belongs to every traveler who has ever been too tired to follow proper procedures, too desperate for rest to care about paperwork. "I understand," I say, surprising myself with my sincerity. "Travel can be exhausting, but I do need to get you checked in properly. What name should I put the reservation under?" Silence. Then, "I don't remember. I've been traveling for so long, the names all blur together. Does it matter? Does it matter? In the normal world, yes, names matter. Credit cards matter. Proper registration matters. But standing here in the hallway at midnight, talking to someone who may or may not exist, the bureaucratic requirements seem suddenly absurd. "Let me ask you something," I say. "How long have you been traveling?" A pause. Then, so quietly I have to strain to hear, "Forever. Or maybe just today." Time moves differently when you're always in transit, always between places, always looking for somewhere to rest. I feel a chill that has nothing to do with the motel's poor heating. "Where are you trying to go?" "Home," comes the immediate response. But I can't remember where that is anymore. Every room starts to look the same after a while. Every bed feels temporary. This room feels less temporary than most. I lean against the door, feeling the weight of countless travelers who have passed through these halls. The Sunset Motel has been operating for 37 years, according to the faded certificate in the lobby. How many people have checked in desperate for rest? How many have been running from something, or toward something, or just away from the weight of their own lives? Are you actually in there?" I ask, though I'm not sure I want to know the answer. Another long pause. I think so. Sometimes I'm not sure. I remember checking in. Remember the key card. Remember being so grateful to find a place that would take me without asking too many questions. But the details, they're fuzzy, like trying to remember a dream after you've woken up. I try the door handle. It's locked, but through the gap at the bottom, I can still see light. still smell the Chinese food and the human sense of occupancy. But when I slide my master key through the lock, something strange happens. The electronic beep sounds different, longer, lower, like a machine trying to process information it can't understand. The door opens on an empty room. No suitcase, no takeout containers, no television flickering in the corner. Just the standard motel room setup, bed made with military precision, bathroom spotless, air conditioning humming in the silence. The scent of occupancy has vanished, replaced by the sterile smell of industrial cleaning products. But as I step inside, I feel it a presence, warm and tired and somehow familiar, like walking into a room where someone has just been, where the air still holds the impression of their passing. I'm still here, the voice says, though now it seems to come from everywhere and nowhere. I'm always here. This is the only place I can rest. I sit on the edge of the bed, feeling the mattress compress under my weight. The room is empty, but it doesn't feel empty. It feels inhabited by someone who has been traveling too long, someone who has forgotten their own name, but remembers the deep need for a place to stop, a place to rest, a place to exist without explanation. What happens during the day? I ask the empty room. I sleep. Dream maybe. Sometimes I remember fragments, other motels, other rooms, other front desk clerks who were kind enough not to ask too many questions. But mostly I just sleep, waiting for evening when I can exist more fully. I understand now. Room 12 isn't haunted in the traditional sense. It's occupied by the collective spirit of every traveler who has ever been too tired to care about proper check in procedures. Every person who has paid cash for a room because they couldn't bear to answer questions about where they'd been or where they were going. Every soul who has found temporary refuge in anonymous rooms like this one. You can stay, I say to the empty room. As long as you need. Thank you, the voice whispers. And there's such gratitude in those two words that my eyes fill with tears. Not everyone understands. Not everyone lets me rest. I leave the room, closing the door gently behind me. As I walk back down the stairs, I hear the television turn on again, tuned to late night programming. The sounds of someone settling in for the night, finally able to rest. Back at the front desk, I stare at the computer screen showing room 12 as vacant. After a moment's hesitation, I create a new entry in the system. Guest name, traveler. Payment method, courtesy. Duration of stay, indefinite. The system accepts the entry without complaint. From now on, when I hear the footsteps at 11:17 p.m., I won't investigate. When I smell Chinese food from an empty room, I won't question it. Some guests need more than a clean bed and functioning air conditioning. Some guests need understanding. They need someone to recognize that travel isn't always about getting from one place to another. Sometimes it's about finding a place where you can exist without explanation, where you can rest without justification, where you can be a temporary resident of a world that demands too many answers. Room 12 is occupied every night now, officially and unofficially, and every morning it's clean and ready for the next guest, even though no one ever checks out. The Sunset Motel serves many kinds of travelers. Some are running towards something. Some are running away. And some, like our guest in room 12, are simply running not toward or away from anything specific, but through the endless night of existence, looking for small oases of rest in a world that never stops asking who you are and where you're going. Tonight, and every night, there's a light on in room 12. The guest registry shows it as occupied. And, somewhere in the space between official records and impossible reality, a weary traveler finally has a place to call home, even if they can't remember their own name. The neon sign flickers outside, casting its uncertain light across an empty parking lot that somehow feels less empty than it used to, and I sit at the front desk, guardian of the night, keeper of impossible reservations, ensuring that every traveler, real or otherwise, finds the rest they need. Story 5. The fluorescent lights buzz overhead like dying insects, casting harsh shadows across the empty concrete expanse of level B2. It's 2:30 a.m., and I'm making my rounds through the Meridian Tower parking garage, my footsteps echoing off the low ceiling in a rhythm that's become as familiar as my own heartbeat. I've been the night security guard here for 7 years. 7 years of walking these same aisles, checking these same corners, ensuring that the sleeping city's vehicles rest safely in their numbered spaces. But there's one car that doesn't make sense. Space 47, third row from the elevator, has been occupied by the same vehicle for 3 months now. A dark blue Honda Civic, license plate partially obscured by shadow, no matter what angle I view it from. The registration sticker on the windshield is current. The paint job is pristine, and the tires look properly inflated. From every external perspective, it's a perfectly normal car parked in a perfectly normal space. Except I've never seen anyone park it there, and I've never seen anyone drive it away. I first noticed it on a Tuesday night in September. I was doing my 3 a.m. rounds when I realized there was a car in Space 47 that hadn't been there during my midnight check. At first, I assumed it belonged to one of the office workers who'd stayed late. Sometimes people work through the night, and I occasionally miss them coming or going during my brief breaks or trips to the security office. But when I checked the next night, the Honda was still there. Same position, same angle, as if it had been placed by someone with obsessive attention to detail. The car sat exactly centered in the space, a perfectly parallel to the painted lines, positioned with geometric precision that seemed almost unnatural. By the third night, I was curious enough to check our entry logs. The Meridian Tower parking garage uses a card. Key system, every vehicle that enters after business hours should have a record in our computer system. But when I searched the database for that Tuesday night, there was no record of any vehicle entering or leaving between midnight and 6 a.m. According to our security system, Space 47 had been empty all night. Yet there sat the Honda, solid and undeniable, under the buzzing fluorescent lights. I started paying closer attention. Every night during my rounds, I would pause at Space 47 and examine the car more carefully. The vehicle never moved, never accumulated dust, never showed signs of being driven. But it also never looked abandoned. The interior was clean, the seats adjusted, as if someone had just gotten out. The rearview mirror positioned for a driver whose height I could never determine. Sometimes, when I pressed my face close to the driver's side window, I thought I could see personal items inside. A coffee cup in the center console, still steaming in the dim light. a jacket draped across the passenger seat, fabric still holding the impression of someone's arm, a cell phone charging cable plugged into the dashboard, its LED indicator blinking as if actively powering a device. But when I walked around to get a better angle, these details would shift or disappear entirely. The coffee cup would vanish, leaving only the empty console. The jacket would be gone, leaving just the smooth upholstery. The charging cable would be unplugged, coiled neatly in the center console as if it had never been in use. Tonight, I've decided to stay and watch Space 47 for an entire shift. I position myself at the security desk on level B2, where I have a clear view of the third row. My chair creaks as I settle in with a thermos of coffee and tonight's crossword puzzle. But my eyes remain fixed on the Honda Civic. Under the harsh lights, it looks almost ethereal, its dark blue paint reflecting the fluorescent glare in ways that make it seem to shimmer occasionally. The parking garage at night has its own ecosystem of sounds. The hum of ventilation fans moving stale air through the concrete arteries. The distant rumble of traffic from the street above, muffled by layers of steel and concrete. The occasional ping of cooling metal as the building settles around its sleeping occupants. But underneath these familiar sounds, I've started to notice something else, a rhythm that doesn't quite match any mechanical system. It sounds like breathing. Slow, steady inhalations and exhalations that seem to emanate from the area around Space 47. At first, I thought it might be the ventilation system cycling on and off. But the timing is wrong. This rhythm is organic, human, as if someone is sitting in the Honda taking deep, meditative breaths. At 2:45 a.m., I hear something that makes me stand up from my chair. The soft click of a car door closing, not opening, closing, as if someone has just gotten out of their vehicle and is preparing to walk away. The sound echoes briefly through the garage before being absorbed by the concrete walls. I walk quickly to Space 47, my flashlight beam sweeping ahead of me. The Honda sits exactly as it always does, perfectly centered. Doors closed. No sign that anyone has been inside. But as I approach, I notice something new. The faint scent of coffee, and something else cologne, maybe, or aftershave. The smell of someone who has just finished a long commute and is grateful to finally arrive at their destination. I circle the car slowly, examining every detail. The windows are slightly fogged, as if someone has been breathing inside recently. When I shine my flashlight through the driver's side window, I can see a slight impression in the seat, the fabric compressed in the exact pattern of someone's body. The steering wheel bears the faint outline of hands that gripped it moments ago. "Hello," I call out, feeling foolish but unable to stop myself. Is someone here? My voice echoes off the concrete walls and fades into silence. But as the echo dies, I hear something else, footsteps, moving away from me through the garage. Slow, measured steps that seem to be heading toward the elevator. I follow the sound, my flashlight beam dancing ahead of me, but I see nothing. Just empty aisles and the shadows between parked cars. When I return to Space 47, the impressions in the seat are gone. The windows are no longer fogged. The scent of cologne has faded, replaced by the garage's usual smell of motor oil and concrete dust. But the car remains solid and present, occupying its space with the quiet authority of something that belongs there. I decide to check our security cameras. The Meridian Tower has a comprehensive surveillance system, and every level of the parking garage is monitored by multiple cameras. If someone is entering or leaving this Honda without my knowledge, the cameras should show it. Back in the security office, I pull up the feeds from level B2. The monitors show exactly what I expected, the Honda Civic sitting motionless in space 47, surrounded by empty parking spaces. I scroll back through the footage, checking every hour of the past week. The car never moves. No one approaches it. No doors open or close. According to the cameras, space 47 has been occupied by an abandoned vehicle for months. But that doesn't explain what I heard, what I smelled, what I saw. I return to level B2 and position myself closer to the Honda, sitting on a concrete barrier about 20 feet away. If someone is using this car, I'm going to see them. I'm going to solve this mystery once and for all. The hours pass slowly. My coffee grows cold in the thermos. The crossword puzzle remains half, finished in my lap. But I keep my eyes fixed on space 47, watching for any sign of movement. Any indication that this ordinary Honda Civic is anything more than what it appears to be. At 4:17 a.m., I see something that makes my breath catch in my throat. The Honda's headlights flicker on. For just a moment, not the bright glare of someone starting the engine, but a brief, soft glow like the car is waking up from sleep. The lights illuminate the concrete wall in front of the vehicle, casting a warm circle of light that lasts for perhaps 3 seconds before fading back to darkness. I stand up, heart pounding, and approach the car. As I get closer, I can hear it, the soft sound of an engine running. Not the rough idle of a cold motor, but the smooth, almost silent purr of a car that has been driven regularly and maintained with care. The exhaust pipe shows no visible emissions, but I can feel the faint vibration through the concrete floor. I walk to the driver's side window and peer inside. The dashboard lights are on, casting a soft green glow across an interior that looks lived in and comfortable. The radio display shows a local jazz station, its numbers glowing steadily, as if someone has just tuned it to their preferred frequency. The air conditioning vents are adjusted at precise angles, positioned for optimal comfort during a commute. And in the driver's seat, I see the clear impression of someone sitting there. The fabric is compressed, the headrest adjusted to the perfect height, the seatbelt pulled across an invisible chest. Someone is in this car right now, I realize. Someone is sitting behind the wheel, listening to jazz, breathing quietly in the darkness. I know you're there. I whisper to the empty seat. I can see where you're sitting. The engine stops. The dashboard lights go dark. The impression in the seat slowly fades as the fabric springs back to its original shape. But before the presence completely disappears, I hear something that will haunt me for weeks. Come a sigh of deep contentment, the sound someone makes when they've finally reached their destination after a long, difficult journey. Thank you, a voice whispers, so quietly I might be imagining it. Thank you for not trying to make me leave. The voice is tired but peaceful, carrying the weight of someone who has been searching for a place to rest. It could belong to anyone, man or woman, young or old. It's the universal voice of every commuter who has ever been grateful to find a safe place to park. Every traveler who has ever appreciated arriving somewhere they could call however temporarily, home. I stepped back from the car, understanding finally washing over me like warm water. This Honda doesn't belong to someone who works in the Meridian Tower. It doesn't belong to a resident of the nearby apartments or a visitor to the area. It belongs to someone who needs this space more than any living person could. The parking garage, I realize, serves more than just the practical function of storing vehicles. Like all transitional spaces, airports, train stations, highway rest stops, it exists at the boundary between journey and destination. And sometimes, those boundaries become thin enough for travelers who are no longer quite alive, but not quite gone to find refuge. Space 47 is occupied by someone who died while commuting, perhaps. Someone whose last conscious thought was about finding a safe place to park. Someone whose spirit still makes the same journey every night, still pulls into the same space, still sits behind the wheel of their beloved Honda and feels the satisfaction of arriving safely. I return to my security desk and update my logbook. Level B2 patrol complete. All vehicles secure. Space 47 occupied by regular long-term parker. It's not exactly a lie. The space is occupied, and the parker has certainly been regular in their habits. For the rest of my shift, I avoid walking too close to the Honda. I can still hear the occasional sound of a car door, still catch the faint scent of cologne and coffee, still see the brief flicker of dashboard lights in my peripheral vision. But I don't investigate further. Some mysteries are meant to be respected rather than solved. When my shift ends at 6 a.m. and I prepare to leave the garage, I pause one last time at Space 47. In the growing daylight that filters down from the upper levels, the Honda looks perfectly ordinary. Just another blue sedan in a sea of parked vehicles. But I know better now. Drive safely. I whisper to the empty car, and I swear I see the rearview mirror adjust slightly, as if someone is checking their reflection before heading out into traffic. I've been the night security guard at Meridian Tower for 7 years, and I've learned that a parking garage is never truly empty. It's a way station for the living and the dead, a place where journeys begin and end, where some travelers find exactly the refuge they need. Space 47 will always be occupied, will always provide sanctuary for someone whose commute transcends the boundaries between life and death. And every night, I'll make sure that particular space remains undisturbed, that its occupant can rest peacefully in their Honda Civic, listening to jazz radio and breathing quietly in the darkness. Finally home after the longest journey of all. The concrete walls echo with more than just footsteps and engine noise. They echo with the dreams of every person who has ever been grateful to find a safe harbor in the urban night. Every soul who has discovered that sometimes the most important destinations are the ones that exist in the spaces between departure and arrival. Tonight and every night, Space 47 is occupied. The logbook reflects this truth, and somewhere in the gentle hum of fluorescent lights and the whisper of ventilation fans, a weary commuter finally finds the peace that comes with arriving exactly where they need to be. Story 6. The fluorescent lights hum their familiar tune above me as I begin another night shift in the emergency room. The sound is constant, like a mechanical lullaby that's become the soundtrack to my existence. Hum, hum, hum. Each pulse matches the rhythm of my tired heartbeat, I've been working nights for 3 years now. 3 years of watching the world sleep, while I tend to the broken, the bleeding, the desperate who stumble through our automatic doors when darkness falls. The smell of antiseptic fills my nostrils sharp, clean, reassuring. It's become my perfume, the scent that clings to my scrubs, my hair, my dreams. Tonight feels different, though. The air seems thicker, more electric. Perhaps it's the storm brewing outside. I can hear the wind whistling through the parking lot, rattling the windows with irregular taps. Tap, tap, like fingers drumming impatiently on glass. Mrs. Chen in bed 7 is sleeping peacefully. I discharged her this morning after her gallbladder surgery routine. Textbook recovery. She went home to her apartment on Maple Street, to her 3 cats, and her collection of ceramic owls. I remember, because she showed me pictures on her phone, her weathered finger scrolling through image after image of wide ceramic eyes staring back at us. But here she is again, lying in bed 7, the same position, the same peaceful expression. The monitors beep softly beside her. Beep, 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 a metronome keeping time with something I can't quite grasp. Her breathing is steady, rhythmic, hypnotic. I check my watch. 20:17 a.m., the witching hour, some would say. The time when the veil between worlds grows thin, when logic begins to fray at the edges like an old hospital blanket. Mrs. Chen, I whisper, my voice seeming to echo strangely in the quiet room. She doesn't stir. Her chest rises and falls, in perfect synchronization with the mechanical ventilation system's gentle whisper. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. I pull up her chart on the computer. The screen flickers once, twice, then stabilizes. According to the records, she was discharged at 10:30 a.m. yesterday. Status stable. Destination home. But the bed assignment shows her as admitted at 15 a.m. tonight. 2 minutes ago. The timestamp can't be right. I refresh the page. The information remains unchanged. Admitted 2:15 a.m. Reason observation post-discharge complications. But I don't remember admitting her. I don't remember the ambulance arriving, the paperwork, the routine of settling her into bed 7. The memory should be there fresh, immediate, but instead there's only fog, thick and impenetrable as the mist I sometimes see rolling across the hospital parking lot just before dawn. I walk to the next bed, my soft, soled shoes making no sound on the polished linoleum. The silence is profound, broken only by the symphony of machines, beeping, humming, breathing for those who cannot breathe alone. In bed 8 lies Mr. Rodriguez, the construction worker who came in yesterday afternoon with a dislocated shoulder. Simple injury, simple fix. I reset it myself, watched him flex his arm with relief, signed his discharge papers with a flourish. Yet here he is, exactly as he was before treatment, his shoulder jutting at that familiar, impossible angle. His eyes are closed, but I can see the rapid movement beneath his lids, REM sleep, dreaming. What does he dream of? I wonder. Does he dream of falling from scaffolding, of pain shooting through his shoulder like lightning? Or does he dream of being whole, of swinging a hammer with precision and strength? The monitors beside his bed display the same rhythmic patterns as Mrs. Chen's. Beep, 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 beep. The sound seems to synchronize across the room, creating a chorus of electronic hearts beating in unison. I count them unconsciously. 1, 2, 3, 4 like sheep, jumping over a fence in some cosmic midream. My hands shake slightly as I check the next bed. The tremor is barely perceptible, but in the stark hospital lighting, my shadow on the wall appears to shiver and dance. Bed 9, Sarah Mitchell, the college student who overdosed on sleeping pills. We pumped her stomach, called her parents, watched her cry as the reality of what she'd done sank in. She went home with phone numbers for counselors, promises to call, a future stretching ahead of her like morning light. But she's here too, curled on her side in the same position. I found her in 12 hours ago. Her breathing is so shallow it barely moves the thin hospital blanket. The rise and fall of her chest creates its own rhythm, slower than the others, dreamier, like a waltz played at half speed. I should check on the other patients, but my feet feel rooted to the floor. The linoleum seems to pulse beneath me, warm and oddly organic, like standing on living tissue. The sensation travels up through my legs, settling in my chest, where it mingles with the growing awareness that something fundamental has shifted in my understanding of this place. The fluorescent light above bed 9 flickers, once, twice, then settles into a slightly different rhythm. Hum, hum, pause, hum, pause. The change is subtle, but it disrupts the perfect symphony that has been playing around me. I look up at the light, squinting against its harsh glare, and for a moment I could swear I see movement within, shadows swimming like fish in an aquarium of electricity. I blink hard, and the shadows are gone. Just the steady, reliable fluorescent hum that has been my companion through countless nights. Hum, hum, hum. The clock on the wall reads 2:17 a.m. That can't be right. I've been making rounds for what feels like hours. I check my watch. The hands point to 2:17. The digital clock on the nurse's station glows the same impossible time. Even my phone, when I pull it from my pocket with fingers that seem disconnected from my body, shows 2:17 a.m. Time has stopped, or perhaps I've stepped outside of it entirely. The thought should frighten me, but instead it feels familiar, like slipping into a favorite pair of shoes that have molded perfectly to your feet. Comfortable. Right. I continue my rounds, moving from bed to bed in a rhythm that feels both purposeful and predetermined. Each patient is someone I discharged today, yesterday. The concept of when becomes increasingly meaningless as I walk through this gallery of sleeping faces. Mr. Patterson in bed 12, the elderly man with pneumonia. Mrs. Jackson in bed 15, recovering from a minor stroke. Tommy Chen, no relation to Mrs. A Chen despite the name, the 8-year-old who came in with a broken arm after falling from his bicycle. Each one sleeping peacefully, their monitors creating that hypnotic chorus that seems to emanate from the walls themselves now. Beep, beep, beep. The sound follows me like a faithful dog, padding behind me on invisible feet as I move through the ward. I realize I haven't seen any other staff members tonight. No nurses chatting quietly at their station. No orderlies wheeling gurneys down the hallway. No other doctors making their own rounds. The emergency room, usually buzzing with activity, even during the quietest night shifts, has become a tomb of sleepers and machines. The isolation should disturb me, but instead it feels natural. This is my domain, my responsibility. These sleeping figures are my charges, and I am their guardian, their watchman in the dark hours, when the boundary between healing and dreaming becomes beautifully, terrifyingly thin. I sit down at the nurse's station and open the computer again. The screen flickers, a pattern I'm beginning to recognize and accept as normal. Mrs. Chen's chart appears, but now it shows continuous admission. No discharge time, no return. As if she never left at all. I click through the other charts. Each shows the same impossible truth, continuous care. No breaks, no departures. According to these records, my patients have been here for days, weeks, some for months. The timestamps blur together, creating a digital tapestry of time that loops and folds in on itself like origami made from chronology itself. My reflection in the computer screen looks tired but peaceful. My eyes appear larger than usual, darker, as if they've expanded to capture more light in this fluorescent twilight. Behind my reflection, I can see the sleeping ward, the gentle rise and fall of blankets, the blinking constellation of monitoring devices. It's beautiful in its way, a galaxy of healing sleep, each patient a star in their own orbit of recovery and dreams. I am the astronomer here, mapping their progress through the night sky of unconsciousness. The storm outside intensifies. Rain begins to tap against the windows, tap, 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 joining the symphony of medical devices. The sound is syncopated against the electronic rhythms, creating a jazz composition played by wind and water and the steady heartbeat of machines. I stand and walk to the window. The parking lot below is empty except for my car, a small, dark shape sitting alone under a flickering streetlight. Beyond the lot, the city stretches out like a circuit board, windows glowing like tiny LEDs in the darkness. Most of the lights are in bedrooms. I imagine where people lie sleeping in their own beds, dreaming their own dreams. But are they really there? Or are they here, in beds 1 through 23, sleeping under my watchful care? The thought doesn't seem strange anymore. It seems logical, even necessary. Where else would the sleeping go but to a place designed for healing? Be watched over by someone trained to monitor the delicate transition between consciousness and dreams. I return to my rounds, checking on each patient with the dedication of a gardener tending rare and precious flowers. Their sleep seems deeper now, more profound. The REM movements behind their closed eyelids have slowed, synchronized, as if they're all sharing the same dream. What do they dream of, these sleepers? Do they dream of the lives they think they return to Mrs. Chen, feeding her cats? Mr. Rodriguez back at his construction site. Sarah Mitchell studying for exams in her dorm room. Or do they dream deeper dreams? Archetypal dreams that connect them to something larger than their individual stories. The monitors continue their mechanical meditation. Beep, beep, beep. The rhythm has become so constant, so integral to my existence, that I wonder if my own heart has synchronized with it. I place my hand on my chest and feel the steady thrum of life beneath my palm. The beating matches the monitors perfectly. I am part of this symphony now. My heartbeat, my breathing, my footsteps as I move between the beds, all of it contributing to the greater composition that plays eternally in this space between day and night, between waking and sleeping, between the possible and the real. The clock still reads 2:17 a.m. I no longer question this. Time here operates by different rules: hospital time, healing time, dream time. Minutes and hours are measurements for the world outside, where people rush and worry and count the passing seconds. Here, in this sanctuary of sleep, time moves like honey, sweet and golden and infinitely patient. I sit down in the chair beside Mrs. Chen's bed and watch her peaceful face. Her breathing creates its own rhythm in out, a meditation on the mechanics of staying alive. Her ceramic all eyes would approve of this vigil, I think. Alls understand the night shift, the importance of staying awake while others sleep. My own eyelids grow heavy. The warmth of the room, the gentle hum of machines, the soft rhythm of breathing from 23 beds, it all conspires to pull me towards sleep. But I resist. This is my post, my duty. I am the guardian of dreams, the keeper of the threshold between consciousness and whatever lies beyond. Or perhaps I am already asleep. Perhaps I have been sleeping all along, and this endless night shift is my own dream, a professional reverie where I tend to patients who exist only in the landscape of my sleeping mind. The thought is strangely comforting. If this is a dream, then I am both the dreamer and the dream, the doctor and the patient, the watcher and the watched. The fluorescent lights continue their mechanical lullaby. Hum, hum, hum. The sound has become the voice of this place, speaking in a language older than words, telling stories that can only be understood by those who work the night shift, who inhabit the spaces between day and night, between sleeping and waking, between the real and the surreal. I close my eyes for just a moment, just to rest them, and when I open them again, the clock still reads 2:17 a.m. Mrs. Chen still breathes her steady rhythm. The monitors still keep their faithful electronic vigil, and I am still here, watching over the sleepers, tending to the dreams that bloom like night flowers in the perpetual twilight of the emergency room. This is my purpose, my calling, my eternal night shift. The rain continues to tap against the windows. The machines continue their hypnotic chorus, and somewhere between the ticking of stopped clocks and the breathing of endless sleepers, I understand that I have found my place in the universe, a guardian of the threshold, a keeper of dreams, a doctor who heals not just bodies, but the very boundary between waking and sleep. The patients sleep on, and I watch over them, and time holds its breath, and we exist together in this perfect, impossible moment that lasts forever and never ends. 2:17 a.m., always 2:17 a.m. forever. Story 7. The engine hums beneath me like a sleeping beast, its vibration traveling through the worn vinyl seat and into my bones. 23 years I've been driving this road. 23 years of the same stops, the same faces, the same ritual of opening and closing doors. But tonight feels different. The dashboard clock glows 11:47 p.m. 3 minutes until my shift ends. 3 minutes until I can go home to my small apartment, heat up yesterday's soup, and pretend I don't hear the neighbors arguing through paper, thin walls. The bus is empty now, has been for the last 40 minutes. Just me and the rhythm of tires on asphalt, the gentle sway as we round familiar corners. I know every pothole on this route, every flickering streetlight, every shadow that should be there, and every one that shouldn't. The radio crackles to life, startling me from my reverie, Static fills the cabin. He punctuated by fragments of voices that seem to dissolve before I can make sense of them. Then Martha's voice cuts through the white noise, clear and tired. Bus 47, you've got to pick up on Elm Street. Corner of Elm and... Her voice wavers uncertain. The passenger says you'll know where. I press the radio button, feeling the familiar groove worn smooth by countless late night conversations. Martha, my shift ended 3 minutes ago. Can't someone else? There's no one else, Jim. You know there's no one else. She's right. Of course she's right. The late shift is always lonely, always understaffed. I sigh and feel the weight of it settle into my shoulders like an old coat. Copy that. Heading to Elm Street. But as I turn the wheel, something gnaws at the edge of my memory. Elm Street. I've driven past Elm Street thousands of times, but I can't quite picture it. The image slides away whenever I try to focus on it, like trying to remember a dream after waking. The bus groans as I shift gears, and I realize I'm humming. Some tune I can't identify. Something that feels old and familiar and wrong all at once. The melody circles back on itself, never quite resolving, and I can't seem to stop. Outside, the city looks different tonight. The usual neon signs seem dimmer, their colors bleeding into each other like watercolors in rain. Street numbers blur past the windshield, 47 Firth, 4 3rd. But then I see 46th again, and 45th. The numbers swim in my peripheral vision, rearranging themselves when I'm not looking directly. My hands feel strange on the steering wheel, too large or too small. The fingers don't quite bend the way they should, and there's a tremor I don't remember having before. 23 years of gripping this wheel, and suddenly it feels foreign beneath my palms. The radio crackles again. Bus 47. Passenger is waiting. I'm looking for Elm Street, Martha. Can you give me cross streets? A static. Then, you'll know it when you see it, Jim. You always do. But I don't know it. That's the problem. As I drive through neighborhoods that should be familiar, everything seems slightly off. Houses lean at angles that hurt her to look at directly. Windows reflect light that isn't there. Shadows fall upward instead of down. And then I see her. She's standing under a streetlight that flickers with each beat of my heart. A woman in a pale coat, her face obscured by hair that moves in wind I can't feel. She raises her hand, and I find myself pulling over before I consciously decide to stop. The doors wheeze open with their familiar hydraulic sigh. She steps up, moving with a strange, measured gait, and I hear the soft tap of her shoes on the ribbed metal flooring. The sound echoes longer than it should in the empty bus. Where to? I ask, adjusting my rearview mirror to see her better. But she's sitting in the back, just at the edge of the mirror's reach, a pale blur that refuses to come into focus. The last stop, she says, and her voice is like paper rustling. You know the one. I don't know the one, but my hands move on the wheel anyway, turning us down a street that stretches longer than it did a moment ago. The streetlights pass overhead in a hypnotic rhythm, flash, darkness, flash, darkness, and with each pulse of light, I catch glimpses of her in the mirror. Sometimes she's there. Sometimes the seat is empty. Sometimes there are more passengers, filling the bus with whispered conversations I can't quite hear. I've been riding this road for so long, she says, and her voice seems to come from different seats now, moving around the bus like smoke. So very long. Do you remember when I first got on? I try to remember. My memory feels thick, like trying to think through honey. Images float to the surface. Other late nights, other passengers. A woman in a pale coat who might have been her, or might have been someone else entirely. The faces blend together, becoming one face, becoming no face at all. I don't. When was that? I ask, and my voice sounds strange in the empty cabin. Hollow, like it's coming from the bottom of a well. Time moves differently here, she says. On the last route. Haven't you noticed? The way the minutes stretch, the way the hours fold in on themselves. I look at the dashboard clock. 11:47 p.m. Still 11:47 p.m. The minute hand trembles, trying to move forward, but somehow unable to break free from this moment. My heart pounds, and I can hear it echoing through the bus speakers, amplified and distorted. Where am I taking you? I whisper. To the place between places. She says, and now her voice is right behind my ear, though when I glance in the mirror, she's still in the back. The stop that isn't on any map. The destination that exists only for those who need to find it. The bus turns by itself now, following roads that appear just ahead of the headlights and dissolve in the rearview mirror. We pass buildings that shouldn't exist, streets with names in languages I don't recognize. The city transforms around us, becoming something older and stranger and more familiar than the place. I thought I knew. I've been the last driver for so long, I say, the words falling from my lips without my permission. How long have I been the last driver? Since the beginning, she says. Since the first night someone needed to go somewhere that didn't exist yet. Someone has to drive the road between what is and what might be. Someone has to keep the bus running when everyone else has gone home. My hands on the wheel feel ancient now, worn smooth by countless nights just like this one. The bus seems to breathe around me, expanding and contracting with each mile we don't travel. Outside, the city has given way to something that might be countryside, if countryside could exist in the spaces between thoughts. But I have a life, I protest weakly. An apartment, neighbors, Martha at dispatch. Do you? She asks, and her question hangs in the air like incense. When was the last time you left the bus? Really left it? When was the last time you went home? I try to remember. Try to picture my apartment, my neighbors, my life outside this vinyl seat and steering wheel. But the images slip away, insubstantial as mist. There is only the route, only the endless night, only the passengers who need to go places that don't appear on maps. The bus slows, though I don't remember easing off the accelerator. Outside, I see a stop sign that glows with its own pale light. This is it, the place she needs to go. The place I've been bringing passengers to for how long now? She stands, her footsteps echoing in harmonics that shouldn't be possible in such a small space. The doors open with their familiar wheeze, but the sound stretches and distorts, becoming something like a sigh. Will I see you again? I ask, though I already know the answer. You'll see me every night, she says, pausing at the top of the steps. Every night that someone needs to find their way to nowhere. Every night that the last bus runs its route between the real and the impossible. She steps down into darkness that seems deeper than night, and and the doors close behind her with a sound like finality. I sit alone in the bus, engine idling, and slowly become aware of the radio crackling to life again. Bus 47, you've got a pickup on Elm Street. Corner of Elm and Martha's voice. Tired, familiar eternal, I press the radio button, feeling the groove worn smooth by countless conversations. Copy that, Martha. Heading to Elm Street. My hands turn the wheel, following roads that appear in the headlights and vanish in the mirror. The dashboard clock glows 11:47 p.m., its minute hand trembling against the weight of time that refuses to move forward. In the distance, I can see a streetlight flickering with each beat of my heart. Someone is waiting there, pale coat moving in wind that doesn't exist. Someone who needs to go somewhere that isn't on any map. I begin to hum as I drive, some tune that circles back on itself, never quite resolving. The melody is old and familiar and wrong, but I can't seem to stop. The bus carries me forward through the endless night, through the space between what is and what might be, where the last route runs forever and passengers wait at stops that exist only when they're needed. 23 years, or 23 minutes, or 23 lifetimes. Time moves differently here on the last route, and somewhere in the back of the bus, I hear the whisper of conversation, passengers discussing destinations that have no names, places that exist only in the journey toward them. The radio crackles. A passenger waits. The route continues. I am the last driver, and this is the last route, and the night stretches on forever in all directions, full of stops that need to be reached and passengers who need to find their way home to places that exist only when the bus arrives to take them there. The engine hums beneath me, and I drive on, carrying dreams and nightmares and the quiet desperation of souls who need to go somewhere that doesn't appear on any map, but exists nonetheless, waiting in the darkness between streetlights, where the last route runs eternal, and the last driver never truly ends his shift. Story 8. The baby monitor crackles softly on my nightstand, its green light pulsing like a mechanical heartbeat in the darkness of my bedroom through the small speaker. I can hear Emma's peaceful breathing, the gentle rhythm that has become the soundtrack to my nights for the past 8 months. In and out, out. Soft and steady, the sound of innocence at rest. My name is Rachel, and I am a mother learning the ancient art of sleeping with one ear, always listening. The monitor is my lifeline to the nursery down the hall, a technological umbilical cord that connects me to my daughter's dreams. Even in sleep, I remain vigilant, attuned to every shift in her breathing, every small sigh or rustle that might signal she needs me. Tonight feels different, though. The air in our house seems thicker, more electric, like the moments before a thunderstorm when the atmosphere itself holds its breath. Through our bedroom window, I can see the moon hanging full and heavy above the suburban rooftops, casting everything in silver light that makes familiar shapes look strange and otherworldly. The monitor hisses quietly with the white noise of electronic transmission. Underneath Emma's breathing, I can hear the ambient sounds of her room, the gentle hum of her nightlight, the occasional creak of the old house settling around us, the whisper of air moving through the heating vents. These sounds have become as familiar as my own heartbeat over these months of new motherhood. David, my husband, sleeps beside me, his breathing deep and untroubled. He's never been a light sleeper, not like me, since Emma was born. I've developed the hypervigilance that seems to come with motherhood. Every sound potentially significant, every silence potentially dangerous. It's exhausting and necessary in equal measure. The digital clock on David's side of the bed glows 2:23 a.m. The deep night hours when the world belongs to feeders and dreamers, when the boundary between the conscious and unconscious becomes gossamer thin. Emma had her last feeding at midnight, and if her pattern holds, she'll sleep until sunrise, 6 blessed hours of rest for all of us. Through the monitor, I hear her shift in her crib, the soft rustle of her sleep sack against the mattress, a tiny sigh that makes my heart clench with love so fierce it borders on pain. She's dreaming, I think. What do 8-month-old babies dream of? Milk and warmth and the safety of arms that hold her, colors and sounds, and the growing awareness that she is separate from the world around her. The breathing continues, steady and reassuring. But as I lie there listening, something begins to feel off. Not wrong exactly, but different. The rhythm is the same, that gentle in and out that I know better than my own pulse. But there's something else underneath it, a quality to the sound that makes my chest tighten with an anxiety I can't quite name. I prop myself up on my elbow and turn up the volume on the monitor slightly. The breathing becomes clearer, more defined. Still Emma's rhythm, still that soft whisper of air through tiny lungs. But now I can hear it, another sound, woven so subtly into the familiar pattern that it takes me several minutes to isolate it. Another breath, not overlapping with Emma's, not competing with it, but synchronized with it, perfectly synchronized, as if someone else is breathing in harmony with my daughter. The realization sends ice through my veins, but I force myself to listen more carefully, to make sure I'm not imagining things in the sleep. Deprived haze of new parenthood. In, out. In, out. Emma's familiar rhythm. In, out. In, out. Something else deeper, more adult, matching her cadence exactly. My hand moves instinctively toward David, ready to wake him. But I stop myself. What would I tell him? That I think I hear someone else breathing in our daughter's room. He'd check the monitor, listen for 30 seconds, hear only what the device is designed to transmit, the sounds of a sleeping baby. He'd tell me it's my imagination, that new mothers often become hypervigilant, to the point of hearing things that aren't there. But I know what I'm hearing. 2 sets of lungs, 2 different timbres of breath, moving in perfect synchronization through the small speaker on my nightstand. One belongs to my 8-month-old daughter. The other belongs to what? I slip out of bed, careful not to wake David, and pad barefoot to the window. From here, I can see Emma's nursery window across our small backyard. The curtains are drawn, cheerful, yellow fabric printed with dancing elephants that we chose when we still thought the baby might be a boy. No light shows from her room, except the soft glow of her nightlight, that gentle amber radiance that keeps the monsters at bay, or should keep them at bay. The breathing continues through the monitor, that dual rhythm that makes my skin crawl, even as it maintains the peaceful cadence that should be comforting. I press my ear closer to the speaker, trying to distinguish the 2 sounds, to understand how something else could be breathing in my daughter's room, without her waking, without crying, without any sign of disturbance. The house is old, built in 1952, according to the real estate listing, and it has its quirks. Pipes that sing in the walls, floorboards that creak with temperature changes, windows that rattle in their frames when the wind picks up. Could I be hearing air moving through the vents? Some acoustic phenomenon that only occurs under specific conditions of temperature and humidity. But air doesn't breathe. Air doesn't maintain the precise rhythm of a living creature at rest. Air doesn't pause and resume with the organic irregularity that comes with consciousness, with the body's autonomic systems governing the flow of oxygen to sleeping cells. I realize I'm holding my own breath, trying not to contaminate the sound coming through the monitor. When I finally exhale, the release is shaky, uncertain. Through the speaker, the dual breathing continues, undisturbed by my anxiety. Should I go to the nursery? Check on Emma directly? The logical part of my mind says, yes, if I'm concerned about something in my daughter's room. I should investigate immediately. But something deeper, more primitive, holds me back. Some maternal instinct that recognizes when investigation might disrupt a delicate balance, might wake something better left sleeping. The breathing shifts slightly, both sets of lungs catching a different rhythm, as if the sleepers are turning over simultaneously. Emma often moves in her sleep, rolling from back to side, finding the most comfortable position for her growing body. But this synchronized movement suggests something else, a connection between the two brothers, a shared dream or a shared awareness that transcends the physical boundaries of the crib. I think about the stories my grandmother used to tell about guardian spirits, about invisible protectors who watch over children while they sleep. In her culture, it was considered lucky to have such a presence, a sign that the child was blessed, protected by forces beyond the physical world. But those were stories from another time, another place, filtered through generations of retelling until fact and fiction became indistinguishable. This feels different, more immediate, more real. The monitor's green light pulses steadily, indicating a strong signal from the transmitter in Emma's room. The device is working perfectly, faithfully transmitting every sound from the nursery to my bedside, which means the breathing I'm hearing is actually happening, actually occurring in the room where my daughter sleeps. I move to the bedroom door and open it silently. The hallway stretches ahead of me, dim and familiar, leading to Emma's room at the far end. Night. Lights dot the path like stepping stones, small concessions to my fear of navigating the dark while carrying a baby. The house is quiet, except for the sounds coming through the monitor, which I can still hear from my nightstand. 3 steps down the hall, I pause. The breathing from the monitor has changed again, becoming deeper, more pronounced. Not Emma's soft infant rhythm anymore, but something more mature, more deliberate. Yet somehow it maintains that synchronized quality, as if it's still connected to my daughter's sleeping form. I take another step, and the floorboard creaks under my bare foot. Through the monitor, I hear both sets of breathing pause, a moment of perfect silence that makes my heart race. Then they resume, but now they seem more aware, more alert, as if whatever is breathing alongside my daughter knows I'm awake, knows I'm listening. The rational part of my mind offers explanations. Sleep apnea can cause irregular breathing patterns. Some babies develop habits of breath, holding that can sound alarming through electronic devices. The monitor itself might be malfunctioning, picking up signals from neighboring houses, creating phantom sounds through electronic interference. But I've been listening to Emma breathe every night for 8 months. I know the sound of her sleep, the rhythm of her dreams, the gentle whisper of her breath against the baby monitor's sensitive microphone. What I'm hearing now includes that familiar sound, but it's not alone anymore. I continue down the hallway, my bare feet silent on the cool hardwood. With each step, the sounds from the monitor become clearer, more defined. 2 distinct patterns of breathing, moving in and out of synchronization like dancers learning each other's steps, sometimes matching perfectly, sometimes creating a complex polyrhythm that sounds almost musical in its interwoven complexity. 5 feet from Emma's door, I stop. The breathing has become so pronounced now that I can distinguish the individual characteristics of each pattern. Emma's is light, rapid, the quick metabolism of a growing baby. The other is slower, deeper, more deliberate, the breathing of something larger, older, more conscious of its own existence. I reach for the nursery door handle, but my hand freezes an inch away from the brass knob. Through the monitor, I can hear a new sound, not breathing, but something else. A soft rustling, like fabric moving against fabric, like someone shifting position in the chair beside Emma's crib. The rocking chair, the antique wooden rocker that belonged to David's grandmother, where I spend countless hours nursing Emma, reading to her, singing lullabies that my own mother sang to me. The chair where I've rocked her to sleep every night since she was born, building a ritual of comfort and security that has become sacred to both of us. Someone, something, is in Emma's rocking chair. The breathing continues through the monitor, that dual rhythm that now makes perfect sense. Emma in her crib, peaceful and untroubled, and something else in the rocking chair beside her, breathing in harmony with her dreams, keeping watch through the dark hours when the world is full of dangers that babies cannot perceive. I should open the door. I should turn the handle and step into the nursery and confront whatever is sharing my daughter's space. But my hand will not move. My body will not obey my conscious will. Some deeper knowledge holds me back. Some understanding that transcends logic and enters the realm of primal maternal wisdom. The thing in the rocking chair means no harm. Somehow, I know this with absolute certainty. It breathes with Emma not as a threat, but as a companion. It rocks gently in the chair not to frighten, but to comfort. It maintains its vigil not as a predator, but as a guardian. But what kind of guardian breathes without a body? What kind of protector exists only as sound and presence, detectable only through the electronic sensitivity of a baby monitor? I lean against the hallway wall, my legs suddenly weak. Through the monitor, the breathing continues its gentle duet, in and out, in and out, 2 creatures sharing the rhythm of sleep. The rocking chair creaks softly, keeping time like a metronome, marking the passage of peaceful hours. My grandmother's stories echo in my memory. Guardian spirits, protective presences, invisible watchers who care for children while their parents rest. In her tradition, such beings were welcomed, honored, treated as members of the extended family. They were the reason children slept peacefully through the night. Why nightmares stayed away. why illness and accident seemed to avoid houses where love lived. But this is the 21st century. We have video monitors and motion detectors and smartphones that can track a baby's breathing patterns. We don't believe in invisible guardians anymore. We believe in science and technology and the power of human vigilance to keep our children safe. Yet here I stand in my dark hallway, listening to something that science cannot explain, breathing alongside my daughter. Something that cares enough to synchronize its existence with her sleep, to share her dreams, to keep watch while I rest. I return to my bedroom, leaving the nursery door unopened. David still sleeps peacefully, unaware of the vigil being kept just down the hall. The monitor continues its faithful transmission, carrying the sounds of two sleepers through the darkness, one small and human and perfectly normal, the other something else. I slip back into bed and turn the monitor volume down slightly. Not off, I would never turn it off, but low enough that the dual breathing becomes a soft backdrop to my own thoughts. Whatever is in Emma's room, it has been there before, probably every night since we brought her home from the hospital. I've simply never listened carefully enough to hear it, never been quiet enough to detect its presence. The thought should terrify me. An unknown entity in my baby's room, breathing beside her crib, occupying the rocking chair, where I've spent so many tender hours. But instead, I feel something unexpected gratitude. Emma has never had nightmares. She's never woken crying from inexplicable fears, never seemed frightened of the dark or the sounds of the old house settling around us. She sleeps through the night with the confidence of a child who knows she's protected, watched over, loved by forces both visible and invisible. The breathing through the monitor takes on an almost musical quality, a lullaby without words, a song of presence and protection that plays only in the deep hours when the conscious mind rests and other forms of awareness take over. I find my own breathing beginning to synchronize with the rhythm, drawn into the gentle cadence of shared sleep. As I drift toward unconsciousness, I wonder if the presence in Emma's room knows I'm listening, if it understands that I'm aware of its vigil, if it cares whether I approve or disapprove of its guardianship. But somehow, I think it doesn't matter. The thing that breathes beside my daughter's crib operates by older rules, ancient agreements between the seen and unseen worlds about the protection of innocence. The monitor's green light continues its steady pulse, a heartbeat of technology connecting me to the nursery, where two beings share the rhythm of night. In my dreams, I hear them breathing together, the quick, light pattern of growing life and the deeper, steadier rhythm of something that has learned the art of watching over those who sleep. When morning comes, I'll check the nursery and find Emma alone, bright-eyed and babbling, reaching up from her crib with the joy of a child who has slept deeply and safely. The rocking chair will be empty, positioned exactly as I left it the night before. The only evidence of the night's companion will be the memory of synchronized breathing carried through electronic waves. But tonight, as I surrender to sleep, I'm comforted by the knowledge that Emma is not alone, that invisible hands might steady her if she starts to fall, that soundless voices might whisper reassurances if she dreams of danger, that something older and wiser than human understanding keeps watch beside her crib. The breathing continues through the monitor, in and out, in and out, a lullaby of protection that plays until dawn drives the listeners back to whatever realm they inhabit, when the world belongs to waking eyes and logical minds. And in the morning, when David asks if Emma slept well, I'll smile and tell him yes, she slept perfectly, peacefully, safely. I just won't mention that she didn't sleep alone. The monitor's green light pulses on, faithful guardian of sound and silence, carrying the secrets of the night from room to room, from sleeper to sleeper, from the world of ordinary things to the realm where love takes forms that science cannot measure, and protection comes in shapes that eyes cannot see, but ears can hear, and mothers in the deep wisdom of love can learn to listen. Story 9. The laundry basket in my arms weighs heavier than it should as I push through the door to the basement laundry room. It's 2:14 a.m., and I'm the only person awake in the entire apartment building. Or so I tell myself as the fluorescent lights flicker to life above me. The familiar hum of electricity fills the space, that low, constant drone that seems to vibrate in my bones. My name is Marcus, and I work the night shift at the city hospital. My schedule is inverted from the rest of the world. I sleep when others work. I'm awake when they dream. It's a lonely existence, but it has its advantages, like having the communal laundry room all to myself at this hour, when the building sleeps above me, and the only sounds are the mechanical heartbeats of appliances doing their endless work. The laundry room is small and windowless, carved out of the apartment building's basement like a concrete cave. 8 washing machines line one wall, their white fronts gleaming under the harsh lights. 8 dryers face them from the opposite side, creating a narrow corridor between them that feels almost ceremonial, like walking down an aisle between rows of sleeping giants. I've been doing my laundry at this hour for 3 years now, ever since I moved to apartment 4B. The routine has become meditative: sort the clothes, measure the detergent, listen to the machines, sing their mechanical lullabies while I wait. The sounds are oddly comforting. The whoosh of water filling drums, the rhythmic agitation of washing cycles, the gentle tumble of clothes finding their dance in soapy darkness. Tonight feels different, though. The air down here seems thicker, more electric. Maybe it's the storm system moving through the city. I can hear rain against the small window wells that peak above ground level. The drops create an irregular percussion against the glass. Tap, tap, pause. Tap, tap, tap. Like Morse code messages from the world above. I load my clothes into machine number 3, always number 3. A superstition I've developed over years of night shift living. The machine accepts my quarters with metallic clicks, and I select the cold water cycle, energy efficient, gentle on fabrics, kind to the building's old plumbing system that sometimes groans through the walls like a sleeping animal. The machine fills with water, and I settle into the plastic chair someone left down here months ago. Orange plastic, the kind they use in school cafeterias, molded to support a human form in the most basic way possible. But it's become my throne, my observation post for these solitary laundry vigils. The washing machine begins its cycle. Whoosh, agitate. Pause, agitate. The rhythm is hypnotic, predictable, like a mechanical heartbeat that marks time in 15-minute intervals. I close my eyes and let the sound wash over me. a white noise lullaby that drowns out the smaller sounds of the building, pipes settling, electrical systems humming, the distant whisper of wind through ventilation shafts. But as I sit there, half dozing in my plastic chair, I become aware of another sound, subtle at first, almost masked by the operation of my own machine. Another washing machine, running its own cycle somewhere in the row beside me. I open my eyes and look around the room. The other 7 machines sit silent and dark, their doors closed, their digital displays blank. But the sound persists, the distinctive whoosh and agitate of a washing cycle in progress. It's coming from machine number 7, at the far end of the row. Curious, I stand and walk over to investigate. Machine 7 looks identical to the others, white front, circular door, digital control panel, but its display is dark, showing no active cycle, no time remaining, no indication that it's running at all. Yet I can clearly hear water moving inside the drum, clothes tumbling through sudsy darkness. I press my ear to the machine's surface. The sound is definitely coming from within, the unmistakable rhythm of washing in progress. But the machine's exterior suggests it's completely inactive. No vibration, no heat from the motor, no electrical hum from the control circuits. A phantom cycle, a ghost in the machine. The rational part of my mind offers explanations. Old buildings have acoustic quirks. Sound can travel through pipes and ventilation systems, creating audio illusions. Maybe I'm hearing my own machine. It sounds reflected and distorted by the concrete walls until they seem to originate from a different location. But I've been coming down here for 3 years. I know the acoustics of this room, the way sounds bounce and blend in this underground space. What I'm hearing is definitely coming from Machine 7, despite all visual evidence to the contrary. I return to my chair and try to focus on my own machine's cycle. But the phantom washing continues, creating a syncopated rhythm against my actual laundry. 2 machines, one real and one impossible, washing clothes that may or may not exist in water, that flows through pipes, that shouldn't be carrying anything. The sound begins to affect my perception of time. Minutes feel like hours as I sit in the harsh fluorescent light, listening to this impossible duet of mechanical voices. My machine completes its wash cycle and falls silent, leaving only the phantom sounds from Machine 7 to fill the basement air. I should load my clothes into a dryer and leave. Go back to my apartment, make some coffee, read a book while my laundry finishes its work. But something keeps me in that plastic chair, listening to the machine that shouldn't be running, watching the digital display that remains stubbornly dark while sounds of activity echo from within its steel drum. The phantom cycle completes. I can hear the final spin, the water draining away through pipes that make no sound in the building's plumbing system. A silence fills the laundry room for perhaps 30 seconds. Then, like a record skipping back to the beginning, the cycle starts again. Water filling the drum, detergent dispensing through channels that show no sign of recent use. Clothes beginning their tumble through a wash that defies every law of cause and effect. I move my wet clothes to a dryer number 4, continuing my numerical progression through the room. The dryer's heat begins its own rhythm, different from the washing machine's aqueous songs. This is a percussion of metal and air, the tumble of fabric against steel drums, punctuated by the whoosh of heated air moving through lint filters and exhaust vents. But even as my dryer begins its 40-minute cycle, the phantom washing continues. Machine 7 maintains its impossible operation, washing invisible clothes in non-existent water, spinning through cycles that consume no electricity and leave no trace of their passage. I sit back down and close my eyes, trying to make sense of what I'm experiencing. Sleep deprivation can cause auditory hallucinations. 3 years of night shift work has definitely affected my circadian rhythms, my brain's ability to distinguish between sleeping and waking states. Maybe I'm dreaming this entire experience, nodding off in the laundry room while my clothes tumble in very real, very explainable machines. But when I open my eyes, everything is exactly as it was. My dryer spinning its heated load, Machine 7 continuing its phantom cycle, the fluorescent lights buzzing their electrical mantra overhead. If this is a dream, it's remarkably consistent with reality. If it's a hallucination, it's one that obeys its own internal logic with disturbing precision. The phantom cycle completes again, and again there's that 30-second pause before it begins anew. Like a loop, a recording that plays endlessly through the night. But recordings of what? What kind of memory could be trapped in a washing machine, replaying itself in an endless cycle of cleaning that cleans nothing, of washing that washes away nothing but time itself? I think about the building's history. Built in the 1960s, it's housed thousands of residents over the decades. Students and workers, families and loners, people like me who live their lives on schedules that don't match the world above ground. How many loads of laundry have been washed in this basement room? How many midnight vigils has this space witnessed? The thought makes me consider the nature of routine, of repetitive actions performed so frequently they wear grooves in reality itself. Maybe Machine 7 isn't malfunctioning. Maybe it's simply continuing a routine that has become so ingrained it no longer needs human intervention to perpetuate itself. Someone who worked night shifts like me. Someone who came down here at impossible hours, feeding quarters into Machine 7, watching their clothes tumble through wash and rinse and spin. Someone whose routine became so regular, so precise, so deeply embedded in the rhythm of their existence that it achieved a kind of independence from the person performing it. But where is that person now? Did they move away, leaving behind only the echo of their nocturnal laundry habits? Or are they still here, in some sense, continuing their routine in a form that transcends the need for physical presence? My dryer completes its cycle with a gentle buzz. The clothes inside are warm and dry, smelling of fabric softener and heated air. Normal clothes, normally dried, ready to be folded and returned to their drawers and closets. Evidence of an ordinary process carried out in an extraordinary space. I should leave now, take my clean clothes upstairs, return to the world of explanation and cause and effect. But the phantom washing continues, and I find myself unable to abandon my vigil. Someone should witness this impossible persistence, should acknowledge the dedication of a routine that refuses to die. I fold my clothes slowly, methodically, creating order from the warm chaos of dried fabric. Each shirt, each pair of socks, each piece of underwear receives careful attention, as if the act of folding could somehow balance the impossibility of the phantom cycle continuing beside me. The sound changes. Not the rhythm that remains constant, hypnotic, eternal, but the quality of the water, the timbre of the agitation. It's becoming clearer, more defined, as if the phantom cycle is gaining strength from my attention, from my willingness to acknowledge its existence. I can almost see it now, the invisible load tumbling through, invisible suds, guided by invisible hands that measure detergent and select wash temperatures according to fabric types that exist only in memory. A perfect recreation of countless midnight laundry sessions, preserved somehow in the machine's mechanical consciousness. The thought should frighten me, but instead I find it strangely comforting. In a world where everything changes, where people come and go and buildings age and decay, here is something constant, a routine so pure, so dedicated, that it has transcended the limitations of physical existence to continue its work in perpetuity. I finish folding my clothes and load them back into my basket. The phantom washing continues, unaffected by my preparation to leave. It will continue after I'm gone, through the remaining hours of darkness, until dawn drives it back to whatever realm phantom cycles inhabit during daylight hours. But as I reach for the light switch, I pause. What if this isn't just a phantom cycle? What if it's an invitation? A demonstration of how dedication to routine can achieve a kind of immortality. What if someone is trying to show me that the simple act of doing laundry at 2 a.m. can become something larger, something that outlasts the body that performs it? I look back at Machine 7. Its display is still dark, still showing no sign of operation. But I can hear the rinse cycle beginning, water flowing through channels that should be dry, soap dissolving in solutions that shouldn't exist. Tomorrow night, I'll come back. Same time, same routine. Same witness to the impossible persistence of habit, transformed into something greater than itself. And maybe, gradually, I'll begin to understand the true nature of routines that run so deep they wear grooves, not just in our daily lives, but in reality itself. I turn off the lights and climb the stairs back to the world above ground. Behind me, the phantom washing continues its eternal cycle, cleaning invisible clothes in impossible water, maintaining a routine that has learned to exist without the person who created it. In my apartment, I put away my clean clothes and make coffee for the few hours remaining until dawn. Outside my window, the city sleeps, its millions of inhabitants dreaming their private dreams, while phantom cycles play out in basement laundry rooms, in empty offices, in all the spaces where human routine has worn the boundary between real and unreal, so thin that habits can continue without bodies to perform them. But that's a thought for another night, another load of laundry, another vigil in the fluorescent cathedral of mechanical repetition that exists beneath every building where people live and work and create routines so perfect they achieve their own independent existence. The washing machine in the basement below continues its cycle. Always has. Always will. Washing the fabric of reality itself clean, one impossible load at a time, through the endless hours, when the world above sleeps and phantom routines maintain their vigil in the spaces between dreaming and waking. I'll be back tomorrow night, same time, same machine number 3, ready to witness again the beautiful persistence of routines that refuse to die, that continue their work long after their creators have moved on to other apartments, other lives, other midnight vigils in other fluorescent spaces where habit and impossibility dance together in perfect, eternal synchronization. Story 10. I know this because I'm watching the digital clock on my dashboard, waiting for the numbers to change, waiting for something to happen in this endless night. The droplets start as whispers against my windshield, tiny fingers tapping, tapping, tapping in an irregular rhythm that somehow feels familiar, though I cannot place where I've heard it before. I've been driving this taxi for 7 years now. 7 years of night shifts, of watching the city transform from its daytime self into something altogether different. The streets become arteries of shadow, pulsing with different blood, carrying different stories. But tonight feels different. Tonight, the familiar has become strange, and the strange has become familiar. The radio crackles with static between dispatches. Car 47, pick up on 5th and Morrison. That's me. Car 47. Always 47. The number follows me everywhere, appearing on receipts, in phone numbers, on the faces of clocks when I wake from restless sleep. 47. Like a signature written in the margins of my life. I turn onto 5th Street, windshield wipers maintaining their hypnotic rhythm. Swish, pause, swish, pause. And there, standing beneath a broken streetlight, is my passenger, a woman in a dark coat, her face obscured by shadow and the angle of her umbrella. She raises her hand, and I pull over, the tires hissing against wet asphalt. The sound of my door handle turning seems unusually loud tonight. The click echoes in the cabin as I lean across to unlock the passenger door. She slides into the back seat with barely a whisper of movement, and I catch her scent, something like old roses and rain-soaked earth. Where to? I ask, adjusting my rearview mirror. Just drive, she says. Her voice is soft, almost musical, with an accent I cannot identify. I'll tell you when to stop. I've had passengers like this before. People running from something, or toward something, or simply riding the night to see where it takes them. I don't ask questions. In this job, you learn that some stories are better left untold. We pull into traffic, such as it is at this hour. The streets are mostly empty, save for the occasional delivery truck or late night wanderer. The rain continues its gentle percussion against the roof, a white noise that fills the spaces between our breathing. I can hear her shifting slightly in the back seat, the soft rustle of fabric, the quiet sound of her breathing. I glance in the rearview mirror to check on her, and that's when I notice it. The back seat appears empty. I blink hard, certain it's a trick of the lighting, the way shadows play in the confined space of the car. But when I look again, the mirror shows only empty vinyl seats, empty space where I know she sits. I can hear her, the soft inhalation and exhalation, the occasional shift of position, the whisper of cloth against cloth. I can smell her perfume, that strange mixture of roses and earth. But in the mirror, there is nothing. My hands tighten on the steering wheel. The leather feels unusually warm beneath my palms, almost alive. Everything all right? She asks, and her voice seems to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Fine. I manage, though my voice sounds strange to my own ears. Just checking traffic. But there is no traffic. The streets stretch empty before us, glistening black ribbons that seem to lead nowhere and everywhere. The traffic lights cycle through their colors: red, yellow, green. But there are no other cars to obey their commands. It's as if the city has emptied itself for our passage, as if we're the only living things moving through this landscape of concrete and steel. I try the mirror again, tilting it slightly, adjusting the angle. Still nothing. The back seat remains empty, a void that contradicts everything my other senses tell me. I can even feel her presence, that subtle shift in air pressure that comes when another person shares your space. The way the car's balance changes with a passenger. "Turn left here," she says. I turn left onto a street I don't recognize, though I've driven these roads for 7 years. The buildings on either side seem taller than they should be, their windows dark and watching. Street signs blur past, their letters rearranging themselves before I can read them properly. The rain intensifies, drumming harder against the windshield. My wipers struggle to keep pace, and for moments at a time, the world outside becomes a watercolor painting, all bleeding edges and uncertain shapes. In these moments of obscurity, I catch glimpses of movement in the mirror, shadows that might be her silhouette, shapes that could be the curve of a shoulder, the fall of hair. "Have you been driving long?" she asks. 7 years. I answer automatically. 7, she repeats. And there's something in the way, she says it, that makes the number sound significant, loaded with meaning I cannot grasp. That's a long time to spend in the space between places. I'm not sure what she means, but something in her words resonates with a truth I've felt, but never articulated. This car, this job, it's all about the spaces between destinations, between the day people and the night people, between the stories that begin when passengers get in and the stories that continue when they get out. We drive through neighborhoods that shift and change around us. Familiar streets become foreign, foreign streets become familiar. I pass the same corner 3 times, though I'm certain I haven't made any turns that would bring us back to the same place. The digital clock on my dashboard has stopped at 11:47, frozen at the moment the rain began. "Do you ever wonder," she says, "if the journey is more real than the destination?" Her question hangs in the air like incense, heavy with implication. I think about all the passengers I've carried over the years, all the fragments of lives I've glimpsed in the rearview mirror. Couples arguing in hushed tones about things that will end their relationships. Business people practicing presentations they'll never give. People crying over losses I'll never understand. All of it happening in the liminal space of my back seat, in the time between departure and arrival. I say slowly, that sometimes the journey is all there is. She's quiet for a long moment, and in that silence, I become acutely aware of the sounds around us. The engine's steady hum, the whisper of tires on wet pavement, the rhythmic sweep of the wipers. But underneath it all, there's something else, a sound like distant music, or voices calling from far away. It seems to be coming from everywhere and nowhere, and I can't tell if it's real or if I'm imagining it. The fuel gauge, I notice, hasn't moved. We've been driving for what feels like hours, but the needle remains exactly where it was when she got in. Time itself seems to have become elastic, stretching and compressing in ways that make no sense. "Stop here," she says suddenly. I look around, confused. We're in the middle of a block, no landmarks or destinations visible, just empty sidewalks gleaming with rain, anonymous buildings standing sentinel in the darkness. But I pull over anyway, the car coming to rest beside a fire hydrant that seems to pulse with its own inner light. I turn around in my seat to face her, and for a moment, just a moment, I can see her. A woman with dark hair and kind eyes, wearing a coat that might be blue or black, or some color that has no name. She's looking at me with an expression of infinite patience, as if she's been waiting for this moment far longer than the time we've spent driving together. "Thank you," she says, and her hand touches mine where it rests on the back of the seat. Her fingers are warm, real, solid, but when I blink, she's gone. Not just invisible in the mirror now, but truly gone. The back seat is empty, the car lighter somehow. The door handle clicks as it opens and closes, but I see nothing. Her scent lingers for a moment, roses and earth, and then even that fades. I sit alone in my taxi, engine running, wipers still keeping their steady rhythm. The rain continues to fall, each drop a small percussion against the metal and glass that contains me. I check the meter, but it reads 0, as if the fare never existed. The radio crackles. "Char 40. 7, what's your status?" I reach for the handset, but my hand stops halfway.
What is my status?
How do I explain what has just happened? How do I describe the passenger who existed in every sense except sight, who asked questions about the nature of journeys, who thanked me before vanishing into the night? SAR 47. I say finally, returning to base. But as I pull away from the curb, I catch a glimpse in the rearview mirror that makes my breath catch. There, in the back seat, sits a man in a dark jacket. He's looking out the window, seemingly unaware that I've noticed him. His reflection is perfectly clear in the mirror. I haven't stopped to pick up anyone. I turn around quickly, heart hammering, but the back seat is empty. When I look in the mirror again, he's still there, solid and real in the reflection. A ghost haunting the space between what is and what appears to be. Where to? I hear myself ask, though I don't remember deciding to speak. Just drive, he says, and his voice is familiar, though I cannot place where I've heard it before. I'll tell you when to stop. The digital clock still reads 11:40. 7. The rain continues to fall, each drop a whisper against the windshield. My wipers maintain their hypnotic rhythm. Swish, pause, swish, pause. And I realize that some journeys never end, they only begin again. I drive deeper into the night, carrying my invisible passenger through streets that exist only in the space between departure and arrival. The fuel gauge hasn't moved. The clock hasn't changed. The rain falls upward, sometimes when I'm not looking directly at it. Behind me, in the mirror, passengers come and go. Faces I recognize but cannot name. Voices that speak in languages I understand but have never learned. They all ask to go to places that don't exist on any map, and I take them there anyway, following roads that appear beneath my tires just as I need them. This is what I do now, what I have always done, perhaps. I am the driver who carries the lost between the places they were and the places they're going, through the endless night that exists in the space between reality and reflection. The rain continues to fall at 11:40. 7. And I continue to drive, and in my rearview mirror, The passengers wait patiently for destinations that may never come. But that's all right. The journey, as she said, might be more real than the destination anyway. The wipers sweep back and forth, counting time that doesn't pass, and I drive on through the night that never ends, carrying stories that will never be told, to places that exist only in the reflection of a mirror that shows everything except what is really there. Swish, pause, swish, pause. The rain falls upward sometimes, and sometimes, in the quiet moments between the sound of the engine and the whisper of tires on wet pavement, I wonder if I'm the passenger now, if I've always been the passenger, riding in the back seat of my own life, invisible to the driver who thinks he knows where he's going. But that's a story for another night, another fare, another journey through the endless spaces between what we think we know and what we can never truly understand. The meter reads 0. The clock reads 11:47. And the rain continues to fall, marking time in a world where time has forgotten how to pass, where passengers board and never leave, where drivers drive in circles that feel like straight lines, where the only truth is the journey itself. I am car 47, and I am driving through the night, and in my mirror, someone is always waiting. Someone is always waiting. Story 11. Heavier, somehow. More present. As if it remembers the weight of what it used to carry. The familiar tug and pull of a companion who no longer walks beside me. But I carry it anyway, wrapped loosely around my palm. Because some habits are harder to break than others. And some routines outlive the reasons they existed in the first place. Midnight walks have been my ritual for 3 years now, ever since the insomnia started, ever since the silence in my apartment became too loud to bear. I walk the same route through Willowbrook Gardens every night at exactly 12:15, following the winding paths that snake between the low-rise buildings like the lines on a palm, reading stories I cannot quite decipher. The security lights create pools of amber warmth every 50 feet, casting long shadows that stretch and contract as I move through them. My footsteps echo softly against the concrete, a steady rhythm that has become as familiar as my own heartbeat. Step, step. The sound follows me like a faithful companion. Tonight, the air carries the scent of jasmine and something else, something organic and earthy that reminds me of the pet store where I used to buy those expensive grain-free treats, the ones in the blue bag that crinkled so loudly when opened, the sound that would send him racing from whatever corner of the apartment he'd claimed as his own. Max. I try not to think his name too often during these walks. Names have power, especially in the quiet hours when the world thins out and becomes permeable to things that shouldn't exist. But sometimes the name surfaces anyway, like a stone thrown into still water, creating ripples that spread outward in ways I cannot control. The path curves left past Building C, where Mrs. Chen lives on the 3rd floor. Her kitchen light is always on at this hour, a warm yellow square against the darkness that makes me wonder if she has her own midnight rituals, her own reasons for keeping vigil against the night. I wave up at her window sometimes, though I've never seen her wave back. As I round the corner near the children's playground, I hear it, the soft jingle of tags against a collar. I stop walking. The sound continues for a moment, that distinctive metallic music that every dog owner knows by heart, then fades into silence. My grip tightens on the empty leash, the leather warming under my palm. Probably someone else walking their dog. This is a pet, friendly complex, after all. Lots of night shift workers who walk their companions at odd hours. Perfectly normal, perfectly explainable. But the jingle sounded familiar. I continue walking, trying to shake the feeling that prickles at the base of my skull. The path leads me past the community mailboxes, their metal surfaces gleaming dully in the security lighting. My shadow follows, sometimes ahead of me, sometimes behind, depending on which light claims dominance. Shadow and light, light and shadow, an endless dance of presence and absence. That's when I see them. A figure walking along the path ahead of me, maybe 40 yards away. Someone in a dark jacket, moving at the same steady pace I maintain during my midnight rounds. And beside them, barely visible in the space between light and shadow, something low to the ground. Something that moves with the familiar gait of a medium-sized dog. The jingle of tags reaches me again, carried on the night air. I quicken my pace slightly, curious despite the strange chill that has settled between my shoulder blades. As I get closer, details begin to emerge from the darkness. The person appears to be a woman, though the loose jacket and baseball cap make it difficult to be certain. Her stride is measured, unhurried, the walk of someone who has made this journey many times before. And the dog, my breath catches in my throat. Golden fur catches the light from the nearest security lamp, a tail that curves in a question mark over its back. The distinctive white blaze across the chest that looks like a shooting star. The size, the gait, the way it pauses to investigate a particularly interesting scent near the base of a lamppost. It's Max. But Max has been dead for 6 months. I remember every detail of that awful morning. The way he couldn't lift his head from his bed. The drive to the emergency clinic, his weight heavy and wrong in my arms. The veterinarian's gentle voice, explaining about kidney failure, about quality of life, about the kindest thing we could do. The metal table that was too cold, too sterile. The injection that took him away from me in less than 30 seconds. I remember the way his collar jangled one last time as his body relaxed, releasing him from pain and releasing me into a grief I still carry like a stone in my chest. But there he is, walking ahead of me in the amber pools of light, his tags singing their familiar song with each step. The woman turns slightly, and I catch a glimpse of her profile. Something about the shape of her face, the way she holds her shoulders, triggers a memory I cannot quite grasp. Like trying to remember a dream that fades even as you reach for it. I call out softly, "Excuse me." She doesn't respond, doesn't turn around. But the dog stops and looks back at me. Even from this distance, I can see the liquid brown eyes, the ears that perk forward with interest, the expression that says, "Do I know you?" "Yes," I want to say. Yes, you know me. You know the sound of my key in the lock, the rustle of the treat bag, the way I used to scratch behind your ears while we watched late night movies. You know the weight of my grief, the shape of the space you left behind. But I don't say anything. I just stand there, watching as the woman gently tugs the leash and they continue their walk. I follow at a distance, my own empty leash trailing from my hand like a question mark. They follow the same route I always take. past the playground, around the fountain that hasn't worked since last spring, through the courtyard where someone has planted night, blooming cereus that fills the air with its intoxicating perfume. Every turn, every pause, every moment of hesitation matches my own midnight ritual exactly. As we approach the far end of the complex, near the maintenance shed where the path loops back toward the residential buildings, the woman stops. She reaches into her pocket and pulls something out, a small bag that crinkles in the silence. The sound sends a jolt of recognition through me so powerful I actually stagger. Treats. She's giving him treats. The same blue bag I used to carry. The same crinkle that would send Max into paroxysms of joy, his whole body wiggling with anticipation. I watch as she bends down, her movements gentle and practiced, offering something to the golden shape at her feet. The dog, Max, it has to be Max, takes the treat delicately, the way he always did. No grabbing, no desperate snatching. Just that careful, almost polite way of accepting gifts that made everyone who met him comment on what a well-behaved boy he was. The woman straightens and continues walking. They're heading back now, completing the circuit. In a few minutes, they'll pass by me again, and I'll have to decide whether to speak, whether to follow, whether to acknowledge what I'm seeing or pretend it's a trick of light and longing. But as they approach, the woman does something that stops my heart. She looks directly at me and smiles. It's my smile, my face under that baseball cap, my hands holding that leash, my routine being performed by someone who is unmistakably me. I watch myself walk past, leading the dog I loved and lost, following the path I walk every night in search of something I cannot name. The other me nods politely, the way you might acknowledge a stranger you pass on a midnight walk. Max looks up at me as they go by, his tail wagging with that gentle rhythm that always meant everything is okay. Everything is as it should be. They disappear around the corner, the soft jingle of tags fading into the night sounds, the whisper of wind through the trees, the distant hum of traffic, the settling of buildings, and the settling of dreams. I stand alone in the pool of amber light, my empty leash heavy in my hand. The next night, I walk at 12:15 again. I cannot help myself. The ritual has become larger than choice, more necessary than sleep. And again I see them, the woman who is me, the dog who is Max, following our route with the dedication of pilgrims visiting a shrine. This time, I try to follow more closely, but they stay exactly 40 yards ahead, no matter how fast or slow I walk. When I stop, they stop. When I turn back, they turn back. We are connected by some invisible thread, separated by some unbridgeable distance. Night after night, the pattern repeats. Different details emerge each time. Sometimes I notice that the woman's jacket is the same shade of blue I wore on the night Max died. Sometimes I see that she carries herself with the slight stoop I developed during those last weeks of his illness, when I spent so much time bent over his bed, trying to coax him to eat. Sometimes I realize that the weight I carry in my chest, that stone of grief I thought was mine alone, is actually shared, divided between two versions of the same story, two walkers on the same path, two people learning to live with loss in the only way they know how. The boundaries begin to blur. Am I following her, or is she following me? Am I the one with the empty leash, Or is she the one whose companion exists only in the spaces between light and shadow? When I reach for my keys after these walks, my hands sometimes smell like dog treats, though I haven't carried any in months. One night, I arrive at the usual starting point to find her already there, waiting. She's sitting on the bench near Building A, Max at her feet, both of them patient, and still as if they've been expecting me for hours. I approach slowly, my empty leash coiled in my palm. She looks up as I near, and her face, my face, is serene in a way I haven't felt since before that awful morning 6 months ago. "He missed you," she says, and her voice is exactly my voice, but warmer somehow, less hollowed out by grief. Max rises and comes to me, his tail wagging that slow, happy rhythm. I reach down to pet him, expecting my hand to pass through empty air. But his fur is warm and real under my fingers, thick and soft the way it was when he was healthy and whole. "How?" I whisper. "Some things," she says, standing and handing me the real leash. Max's leash, the one I threw away in a moment of unbearable pain, don't end when they end. Some things just change form. I take the leash, feel its familiar weight, its worn leather grip shaped by years of my hand. Max looks up at me with those liquid brown eyes, and in them I see not death, but transformation. Not ending, but continuation. "Every night?" I ask. "Every night," she confirms. 12:15, rain or shine. Some rituals are bigger than the people who perform them. I clip the leash to Max's collar, hear the soft metallic sound of the clasp engaging. His tags jingle as he shakes himself, ready for our walk. The sound is music, pure and simple. The other me, or am I the other her, begins to fade as we walk, not disappearing exactly, but becoming transparent, like morning mist touched by sunlight. By the time we reach the playground, she is more memory than presence, more echo than voice. But Max remains solid beside me, his paws making soft sounds against the concrete, his breathing steady and content. We follow our route, past Mrs. Chen's lit window, around the broken fountain, through the courtyard where the night, blooming Sirius, releases its perfume into the darkness. At the far end of the path, I stop and pull out the blue bag I somehow have in my pocket. It crinkles with the sound of possibility, of treats offered and accepted, of small rituals that bind us to the things we love. Max sits automatically, his tail sweeping the ground, his eyes bright with anticipation. "Good boy," I whisper, offering him the treat. He takes it with the same delicate politeness he always showed, and for a moment, the world is exactly as it should be. We complete the circuit together, my grief transformed into something else. Not healed, but changed. Not gone, but integrated into a new understanding of what it means to love something, beyond the boundaries of life and death. When we return to the starting point, I look back once. There, 40 yards behind us, I see a figure walking alone, carrying an empty leash, following the same path we just completed. The figure looks familiar. The slope of the shoulders, the measured pace, the weight of sorrow that changes how a person moves through the world. I wave, and after a moment, she waves back. Some nights I walk with Max, solid and warm beside me, his tags jingling their familiar song. Other nights I walk alone, following the figure ahead, who carries what I have lost. The pattern shifts and changes like the play of light and shadow under the security lamps, but the ritual remains constant. 12:15. Every night, rain or shine. Because some things don't end when they end. They just find new ways to continue. New paths to follow, new forms to inhabit in the spaces between what we remember and what we hope. Max looks up at me as we walk, his tail wagging that gentle rhythm that always meant everything is okay. Everything is as it should be. And tonight, for the first time in 6 months, I almost believe him. The leash feels right in my hand, heavy with presence, light with possibility. The way it always was, the way it always will be.